Hey folks, what's happening? How you doing? How y'all doing this week? Good to see you. I'm still waking up here. I just got my coffee going. Hope you all got yours. Mm. Oh, it's a little hot, but it was delicious. What did I do this week? Videos of the Foxy Tone Box from Warm Audio that came out on Monday. What else do we have this week? The little Tascam Porta Studio thingy in my first video for Guitar World. That was fun to do. I enjoyed that. The what's it called? The Model 12, and I recorded Porta Studio style on it, just using the internal recorder. It's kind of interesting. It's a recording interface as well as a mixer and a controller, and you can also use it as Porta Studio and record to an internal SD card. So works pretty well, I find. I'm just going to turn on a light in the back here. I'm just going to balance out the screen a little bit, a little white balance. Whoops. There we go. Do that. Maybe this one too. Why not? Why not? Around the messy room here. There, that looks better, right? Quite so unhealthy. Lauren says that Foxy Tone Box is affordable. It's true. Warm Audio, they've kind of made their name doing mostly studio stuff like compressors and mic pre's and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, copies of Neve and what else? API and units like that. And then this is their first kind of guitar related stuff. They've also got a jet flanger. So kind of neat. Steven says loads of knobs and dials on the Tascam. That was a fun one to do. It's really simple. It's just a simple, 3-band EQ with sweepable mid, compressor on every channel. That's nice. I mean, pretty cool. So I enjoyed doing that, and I enjoyed doing the thing for Guitar World. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to do some things that I probably wouldn't do otherwise, review wise and stuff. So, yeah. Doc IC is asking me, has my work in Premiere Guitar ended? I noticed you weren't in the latest one. That's right. Yeah. I don't know. They decided to end the column. So, which happens, all columns come to a close, but it was a long run. I mean, I've been doing it since 2012 or 2013. Didn't really tell me why. So, right around that time, I got contacted by Guitar World, and they had this idea of kind of like ambassador, like doing gear reviews, making a video. The videos go on my channel, but they will sponsor it through their social media and stuff and kick it out. And so they put out an email and things. And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. Let's do something different, like that I haven't done before. I don't know. It's unfortunate. I mean, Premiere, I had a good run with those guys. I've posed ideas to them over the years, and it just sort of seemed like, to be honest, like maybe we were on a different page sometimes, with ideas. I always wanted to get into doing the kind of rig rundown stuff. And I posed to them a couple times, like, why don't I be your West Coast guy? Because they would only do them in Nashville, really. It seemed like when somebody was in town in Nashville that was coming through at the Ryman or at the auditorium, at the big venue there, they would do a rig rundown with John or one of the other folks that was, in that neighborhood. And I was like, why don't you let me do that on that? Because I've made a few of those for my own channel. I did one with Steve Stevens and, some other ones that I've done. And I feel like I'm good at it. And I have a good perspective of what people's rigs are. And I would do the research and stuff. And I'm a geek, like you guys know. So I was like, why don't you make me your West Coast guy? You just hook me up with a cameraman or a guy with an audio recorder and send me out and I'll do those things for you. I got no traction from them with that. They just didn't seem interested. Okay, well, I don't know. I'll make it for my own channel. But I might pose an idea like that to Guitar World or something and see what else there is to do. Because honestly, I love writing, but doing print in a magazine is maybe my I just feel like, does anybody, I guess people read them. I don't know, but it's like the video thing is more where it's at these days, no matter what. So that seemed to make sense from the Guitar World's thing, as far as what I'm doing for them, makes a hell of a lot of sense. Making videos on my channel, but they're promoting them. And that's going to pull more people to my YouTube channel, from their orbit, because they've got a big subscriber base. It's Guitar World. So if they're kicking out emails and stuff and sending people to my channel and I'm getting new subscribers, it helps me grow and stuff. And that's kind of more my thing anyway, is the YouTube thing. So, so I'm glad that I have started the relationship with them. Next up is an amp that they've sent me to do. And every couple months I'll do one for them. And then I'll also, see if maybe, like, I don't know if they do the rig rundown thing. I guess that's Premier's gone and copyrighted that, or whatever you want to call it. They've got or trademarked it or whatever. You can't actually use that, but rig walkthrough, whatever, you can call it something else. But I'd love to do videos like that for them or something. I think that would be cool. I think it's hot as hell in here, and I'm going to open up the good old Nest app and change the temperature. Hey Siri, open Nest app. Okay, let's see if I can find some questions here. Let's see. Christopher says that he got John Sir to answer a question about Sir HSH guitar last night. If nobody saw, John was on Tone Talk with Dave Friedman, and the kind of theme for the show was frequently asked questions, like, because both those guys get email all week long with questions like, hey, my amp is buzzing, what's wrong? Or, that kind of thing. And you spend a lot of time answering questions, that the same ones over and over again. Or I've got two cabinets, one's 8 ohms and the other one's 8 ohms, and what do I set my amp at for impedance or whatever, things like that you just answer over and over and over and over and over again. So I thought that was a great idea, and I even suggested, I don't know if they'll do this, but maybe they will, to go through and at the different points mark the time stamp so that they can put it in the video description below all the way through, because it's a 2-hour show of all the different questions. And then they can just say, hey, when they get a question that's always, a frequent thing, they can send the email back, say, reference this video at 1628 or whatever, and there's your answer, but anyway, John on Tone Talk, check that out if you haven't seen that one. Let's see, up there in the top chat, Vibhas, how are you? Thank you, man. He says, curious as to why you went with an HH configuration for your signature guitar. I've heard you say previously that HSS is one of the most versatile setups. Yeah, except for when you need the humbucker, and you can always tap the humbucker. So he says he's loving the Badger 35. Thanks for sharing your settings earlier. You bet. But for me, the guitar was a combination of our favorite guitars from Fullerton and our favorite guitars from Kalamazoo, really trying to get all those sounds. And I guess I went with the thing about the Thornbuckers is that they are so clear, and tapped, the pickup is surprisingly great. The neck pickup, I think it's quite low output, but it works really well, and it has a beautiful sound. As a, it's not exactly like a Strat, but it's its own thing, and it's cool. So I feel like it works well, and you kind of can't get that sound if you go hum single single. Now, I love hum single single. Obviously, I play that other Sir Classic that I've got these days a lot, and it's a great thing, having a hum single single guitar as well. So, it's I play both. I would say about equal. Like I play my signature guitar or a 2 humbucking guitar, or a 3 single coil or hum single single guitar, and I split my time between those, and I don't actually really have a clear preference. But on my signature guitar, it's the most, it's kind of the most versatile. It's just if you want to get a gainy neck pickup tone with that kind of more sustain and stuff for solos, you kind of can't get that out of a neck single. I mean, you can, but it's not the same. It doesn't have, you guys know what I mean. It doesn't have the same type of, the fatness and the girth and stuff that you can get it. Like if you want to play a high gain ripping solo on the neck pickup or whatever, get that smooth kind of sound, so that's one thing you would sacrifice and not be able to get. So this is no guitar does it all, I guess. Yeah, let's see here. Preston Smith's got a split because he's got to teach someone. A noble cause. Let's see here. What else have we got? Peter says, to anyone in the Gulf of Mexico, stay safe. Storms are coming. That's true. Everybody stay safe out there with those multiple storms coming in. Braxall says, let's say we have 2 amps with each having an effects loop, and I want to switch my guitar and pedal board at times between the two amps with their respective effects loops. How do I do it? One thing that you could do is get an amp Pete, like my switcher up there, right? How do you do it? There. You ever try and do it's mirror image and all that? Anyway, sorry, such an idiot. It's got an effects loop in it, right? And so that's what it's designed to do, is switch between amps. And you can, so what you do is you patch in your effects to that. You patch in your effects to the amp Pete, and then there's send and returns for the amp Pete that go to each amp send and return. And so if you got a couple, 3, 4, or 5 amps or whatever that have loops, whatever, you've got, it's a lot of cables. That's the only thing. You need to buy a lot of cables. But other than that, it works flawlessly. You just, have the loop on the amp Pete with the master effects tied in. And then when it's switching between amps, it's also switching the effects sends and returns, right? So that's one way you can do it. So look at the amp Pete. If you just have a couple amps, you can get the 4x4 one that switches between 4 amps and 4 cabs, and with provisions for effects loop and stuff like that. That's the best way to do it, really. There's a radial box that'll do it with 2 amps. Radial makes something. I used to have it in here. Anyway, there was one in here a while ago, but it's a radial unit that'll do a similar thing. That'll allow you to. I can't remember if the radial has provision on it to switch between the 2 amps or not, or if it's just to patch in the effects loops. I don't remember, and if you need something else. Anyways, look at radial and you'll see what I mean. And just can't remember the exact features of their unit, but between that and the amp Pete, you should have something that works. Yeah. What else do we got here? Let's see here. Guitar World video was great, says Preston. Thanks, man. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun doing that. Like I say, I think they'll send me some different stuff that I wouldn't get to do otherwise, and it'll be cool. It'll be a good thing overall, and something slightly different than what I normally do. What does your PT100? How does your PT100 differ from the ODs? That's Cody. Well, an OD100 originally, for instance, was I think 5881s or 6L6s, so that was a big difference. So you have a different output transformer, and the voice, it had stiffer filtering, and the voicing was more broad, modern distortion, I would say. Probably still loosely Marshall-ish, but I'm not sure what the exact differences were. But John's original take on the OD100 was a big. If John designs a distortion amp, I find that his the voicing, like for instance of the SEs or those different amps that he's made over the years, the voicing tends to be big, full distortion with lots of lows and kind of a broad sound, like a modern distorted kind of thing. When he's doing a gain amp, not so much the more leaned out Jose Marshall lineage thing. More like, like you've got your plexi circuit and with the Jose or different amps that added a tube up front, basically, a gain stage in front of a plexi, basically, with a real leaned out low end on it, so it stays tight and kind of, and a lot of amps that have come after that design, like say Dave's BE100 or the mini amps share quite a bit with that design. The tube in front of gain stage in front of a plexi sort of design. Now, other amps, like say the Soldano or something, there's even another gain stage. And anyway, the leaned out kind of Jose thing with maybe more plexi vintage filtering and all that, that's a sound. And then the stiffer filtering with more gain stages is a different sound, So anyway, the OD100 would have veered more in that direction, I think. I don't know exactly, like technically, the differences. Yeah, I can't get down to specifics of, of things. I have no idea, but I do know that that's more the, It's a different thing than that Jose leaned out, you know, low end cut sort of, but gainy stage in front of a plexi style circuit with the more vintage filtering and the EL34s and stuff like that. So those are the differences. The clean channel's basically the same. There's a little bit of difference in the clean channel, but it's very, very, very similar to an OD100. But anytime you have a different power section in an amp, you know, like we used a Haybor copy of a Dagnall 1.5 inch output transformer, you know, blah, 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 like 67 plexi style output transformer. It would be a very different, probably output transformer than whatever was in a OD100 with 6L6s. And those things will change the sound, as well as all kinds of stuff like negative feedback and, you know, all kinds of things that I don't really know on the, you know, I remember hearing I played through when I first went out there and was hanging out with John, like in the first couple of years I knew him, I remember playing through the closest amp that he made that was what I sort of bonded with was the Classic Plus. Does anybody remember one of those? An OD100 Classic Plus, which was probably the most Marshall of, I like that amp. I thought it sounded really great. It was EL34 based and, you know, just a variation on the OD100. And so my amp's probably the closest to that, you know. And then the original PT100 is different than the new one too. I mean, things changed with the new one. So, yeah, okay. What else we got? Some folks are talking about the Tascam Model 12 demo. Something really great about the Porta Studio format. Yeah, I mean, it's cool for many guys. I mean, for a simple, you know, travel thing or for doing, you know, maybe a drummer that needs a lot of mic pre's, you know, an easy kind of faders and knobs, easy to kind of control, you know, as a front end, or, you know, if you're doing simple song demos or if you're recording a band, doing live recordings. Mike says, what's the best place on your board for an envelope filter? Great question. There is kind of no right or wrong, but I would say relatively close to the guitar is going to give you the most dramatic sound. Because if you put something like a overdrive or a fuzz in front of an envelope filter or a compressor, you're limiting the dynamic range of the guitar, and you're not going to get that wild sound of the envelope changing. You know what I mean? Like, the envelope changing is a result of a loud sound going into it and then quickly dying off to a quieter sound. So the attack of the guitar string hits the envelope filter, opens up the filter, and then closes the filter, and you'll get the related sweep, however you've got it set, sweep up or sweep down or whatever you want it to do. And it relies on a very dynamic sound. So if you limit the dynamic range, either with a fuzz or an overdrive or something, then you don't get that crazy sweep. So you're going to want to put it before overdrives is my point, or fuzzes, probably, if that's what you want, if you want to get that great big sweep. Now, interesting pedal, the Grease Juicer from my friend Kurt Biscara and Westco Pedals. It mimics the old Bootsy Collins type of setup where he had an envelope follower and also a fuzz, and he used to do it in a unique way where the guitar would still see the clean signal from the bass. He wouldn't put the envelope, I don't know if they're in parallel or if the fuzz is indeed before, might be fuzz before the envelope follower, but with the Bootsy thing, the unique thing is he would somehow make the envelope follower see the clean signal out of the guitar as far as audio goes to, you know, so, and it had a very unique sound the way Bootsy did it, and that's what they emulated in the Grease Juicer. And what you get with that envelope follower is this really dramatic, cool fuzz that it's fuzzed out and gained out, but it got that wow crazy sweep, and it's very funky and cool and like kind of crazy. So, and you can hear it in actually on my Instagram. There's an example of that sound a few posts back of Laura Basilio in my studio when we cut a couple tracks for her record. It was last year or the year before. And she came into the studio here, and I happened to have that pedal because I was making a video of it. And I was like, try this thing. You got to plug into this thing. And she plugged into it and ended up tracking some really funny sounding parts. I mean, it's a lot of like humor in it. So you can see that on my IG if you want to hear it. But that's a great, makes every riff just hilarious. It makes them all like quack like a duck. It's funny. So with this crazy fuzz. Anyway. Yeah. One knob compressors work good for light touch control when recording, says Lauren. Yeah, a simple compressor is a good thing. Simple effects when recording, like as far as what's going on when you're tracking, are a good thing. Like a simple, DBX style compressor with just, you remember the ones with the big slider to control compression amount? They're great because it's like when you're tracking yourself, more knobs and stuff it's more stuff to think about. When you're the engineer and the performer, it can be hard, and I sort of feel like going in, like, unless I had my own control room and I was engineering and somebody else was doing the playing and stuff, then you can get tweaky while they're in the other room playing and you're like dialing in the perfect sound with a compressor. When you're playing, it's hard to do all that. So I would agree with that. Like sometimes the simplest, I'm just looking over here because I have a DBX 560A in my 500 series rack over here. And it's one of the only outboard pieces of gear I have in here that's actually like something I can patch in. I have an 1176 too, UA, 1176 I can patch into, and a couple sort of rack things that I can patch into that are, but most of my stuff is done in the box, effects wise, and most of it would be in the mix. So when I'm tracking, I'm not really running, unless I'm using a guitar pedal compressor or something. It's kind of rare that I run into a compressor, but I will use UA ones like on the way in and UA console and put sometimes a LA2A on bass or 1176 or something in the virtual world. But the amount of times I turn on this 1176 that I have in here in a year, it's like I just don't use it that much. I find, the software is so good these days. I can just get it out of software, just that little bit of leveling, that you're looking for going in. And then, the plugins just do it. So it's like, it's an easier way to do it without having a patch cable and stuff. But I do use the DBX sometimes that I have in here. It's cool. And I have a Meris Mercury 7 reverb that's amazing, but it's just the mono one. The one that's my other 500 series that I have in here. And I should use it more. I feel like I should just get the pedal actually and use it for guitar. But it would be nice to have the 500 series version, kind of use it a little bit, Jennifer's up there in the top chat, super chat. Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate that. She says, COVID budget coffee gratuity. Thanks for being here. And you're talking about other things about share that. She's talking about, unfortunately, Chris Cornell's statue, I guess, in Seattle was vandalized by somebody weird. If you've got info on that, I would say send it to the authorities. And that would be, probably Seattle PD or something would be the folks to contact, I would think, right? But thanks, Jennifer, for doing the top chat. I appreciate that. It's unfortunate, that happened. It's weird. But, music fans are weird, I guess. There's some wacky ones out there, kind of what makes the world go round, right? Crazies. Let's see here. Thanks, Jennifer, for doing the top chat. I will buy a coffee. What else we got here? You guys are talking about TC pedals. I think Rhett's here. What's up, Rhett? How are you, man? Oh, I know what I was thinking. I was looking at a video of Rhett's last night because I have this crazy pedal here. Let me show you. And Rhett did a video of it. Oh, God, it's all tangled up here. Just 1 second. I'm finishing this video today for this crazy thing. You guys seen this thing from Chase Bliss? Holy, look at this thing. Now, watch this. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. See the fader moving? I'm moving an expression pedal down on the floor. It's moving faders, this thing. So when you go to different presets, oops, how do I go to different presets? Here's the preset button, right? You can see all the faders move. Isn't that nuts? So this thing's amazing. It's really great sounding, and it is not cheap. But what a great pedal. It's a from Chase Bliss. They're always doing something interesting at Chase Bliss. And a guy named Benson from Benson Amps. It's a combination. It's a collaboration between those two companies. Benson had an amp called a Chimera or something that is like a very sort of, it sounds to me like it's kind of an organic, natural, probably not like super high gain or modern or anything like that, but like a cool sounding tube head. And he took that amp and shrunk it down into a pedal. He replaced the tubes with FETs and made a preamp. It's called the Benson preamp, and it's like a preamp style overdrive pedal, but that's modeled on his amplifier. So this has that preamp in it. That's what the circuit is that's in it, the gain in this. But they also added a mid-range with a full parametric, so sweepable mids, and you can pick how wide the Q is on the mids. There's a fuzz in here, silicon as well as germanium, and it does the cleanup thing when you roll down the volume on the guitar. You can add in the fuzz or not use it. Excuse me. And what else? I guess that's it. The mids, the fuzz, the presets. There's 30 presets you can store. So you can do, my point is you can do everything very natural clean boost with this, or slightly colored clean boost with maybe some mids or something like that, all the way through to full bore fuzz and, to ampish kind of drive. It's a really amazing sounding drive pedal. Like when you hear it with my Strat, you'll probably go, like the song I did for it starts with the Strat tone, and it just sounds great. It reminds me of something Keith Scott would use, or something like the Strat tone with, just really good sounding. I'm going to miss a top chat here, so I'm going to check it out first. Oh, it's Mark, and he didn't ask a question. Mark, thank you so much up there in the top chat. He's up in Canada. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Anyways, it's really something, this pedal. And it is expensive, but you could conceivably replace quite a few pedals, like a clean boost, a drive, a light distortion, and I would say a fuzz could all be taken off your board if you had this, and you could do presets. It MIDI switch, it's got MIDI, so that's cool. And the expression pedal thing, so you can use it like a wah, man, which is, see the middle going up and down there? This might have been the preset that I did with the wah, actually, but you can see that going up and down. That's wah, the frequency. So it'll sweep like a wah when you move that, when the mids are on. It's amazing. Really cool. Little things like, any of the faders can be assigned to the expression pedal. So let's say you've got at the heel end of the expression pedal, the gain down and the volume up for a bit of kick into the amp and kind of a nice buffered clean boost. And then as you roll the volume up, you can bring the gain up on the pedal and maybe pull the volume down simultaneously. So you get an even volume level, but with more distortion. Little things like that. Yeah, I made a preset like that and did that. Very easy to do. It's super simple, actually, the programming. If you want to get in and like program the expression pedal, you just hold these two buttons down. I'm going to change. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Let's see here. If I go here, I'll go to a different bank. Okay, so let's say I start here, right? And then I want to program the expression pedal. You simply hold down these two things, and now whatever you want to assign to the expression pedal, let's say I want it to be volume and gain. I'll pull those up, and now it knows that I want to assign those two. If I hit this now, okay, now this is what's going to happen at the toe end. So if I wanted to set it up like I just said, where I want a little more distortion, a little less volume, I'd have these like this. And then at the heel end, bring, what do I want at the heel? More volume and less gain, like this, right? Okay, now that's programmed in. So if I go like this now, it's going to go back to the thing. And as I move the expression pedal, what I just programmed in happens. Isn't that cool? So I'm moving it on the floor. And then as far as the other, then you can set these wherever you want, and they're not going to change, right? And then you can store that as a preset. Easy. Really fun, actually. Like great it's a really nice sounding overdrive and distortion, and kind of fun to program. And it's like, wow, I can do this with this thing. It's cool, really cool. Doesn't get super dirty. It won't be like a Sir Riot or something like that, or a let's see, take away Marshall in a box pedals. Is Plexico up there? He's got a question up there. Thank you for doing the top chat, good sir. Marshall in a box pedals, like the best ones. yeah, I'll move on from this. But anyway, the video from this is coming this week. So really fun. I love when people do different stuff, and this is a really successful experiment, I would say, in doing something different. Really neat. You know, big project, obviously. They went to some length to come up with that thing. So kudos to you guys up there in Portland. Marshall in a Box, my favorites would be, the number one thing that comes to mind is the Origin Revival Drive, both the small one and the big one. Big one has a little bit more going on for it, and one thing that's really special about it is the ability to add in ghost notes. I've never heard another overdrive pedal. Talk about something different in pedals. The ghosting thing on that pedal is very special. As you blend it in, this note just kind of gets fatter. If you blend in too much, it does sound like there's a note under the note that's almost like, and it can be a little weird. But if you just mix it in at just the right level, it's like, that is very amp-like. Like, the ghost notes that you would find on an old AC30 or Marshall with low filtering and stuff like that. And so the Origin really has a special thing going on. This pedal does pretty cool kind of vintage, maybe like JTM 45 kind of stuff and Marshall-y stuff. So it's pretty cool in that regard too. Other Marshall-y pedals, the Little Brute Drive is really nice. I can't remember, BJF or something, they make that. It does that kind of tone really well. The BEOD is great for the high gain thing. Really great. And I'll think of a couple. The Lagrange is really quite good for that, for Marshall in a Box. The Ramble FX Marvel is really good. So there's a bunch. The Wampler, they got a bunch. Plexi Drive and the Pinnacle. I'm going to miss another top chat here. Hey, Pete, hello from JD. Love the appearances on Tone Talk. Thanks, man. That's a fun show. Yeah, I like to just say hello in the chat sometimes, too. Thanks for doing my top chat. I appreciate that. We've got 320 people online. Good to have all you guys here. Appreciate you being here very much. And hey, please subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't. If you're new, it'd be great to have you here. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're new to my channel. It'd be great to have you here for more videos and more good times. Who else we got up there in the chat? We got, it says, just showing that support. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for that. I'll grab a coffee this week on you. I appreciate it. Miguel is up in the top chat as well. And he says he's enjoying the UA PT100 plugin. Cool. I'm so into it, wondering if there's the possibility of Sir making a PT50 head. Yeah, definitely. It's a thing. It's happening. Just, I don't know when, but something we're working on now, actively. I can't wait, actually. And it'll be slightly different, I think, than the 15, The basic amp will be a higher power version of the 15, I think, but we'll add some twists, a couple things maybe to just set it apart a little bit. Because I love the 15. It's amazing. It's my baby. It's my number one gig thing these days, and kind of main amp that I use in here. I actually used the PT100 for the demo for this preamp because one of the things I wanted to do was, well, number one, it sounds great. It's PT100 is still fantastic sounding amplifier. It's got a great clean channel that's terrific for pedals. I also used this in front of the dirty channel on a couple things. And what I wanted to be able to do was actually MIDI switch my amp as well as this pedal with a MIDI foot controller I've got a nice little MIDI foot controller here I should show you as well, how I'm doing the switching right now. Well, it wasn't right now because I don't have it actually turned on, but I was just in the video. You'll see me do MIDI switching. I'm using this. This is from Blackstar, and it's called Live Logic. It's pretty cool, simple MIDI foot controller. No loops or anything for pedals or anything. This is just a MIDI foot controller, but it's USB as well as regular MIDI, so you can plug this in and control plugins and things with it. So, for instance, for somebody like with the PT100 plugin, I'm pretty sure there's MIDI implementation on the plugin. I've never tried it, but I'm going to experiment around with using this to do some switching of some software stuff, and to some effect. I've never done that. I've never tried to MIDI switch plugins, so that's going to be interesting, and I'll do it with that That's kind of what they made it for. Yes, it's a MIDI controller you can control, say, the PT100 with, or this pedal, but it's also, you're able to control plugins with it. So it's kind of interesting. What else we got here, guys? Robags is up there in the top chat. He's somewhere in Europe. And thank you, man. You guys are just showing your love. I appreciate that. I do. Let's see here. God, my eyes suck today. I got so many floaters, you guys, that sometimes it's hard. You'll see me like do this thing. It's, as I get older, it's just like my eyes are crap, as you know. And you guys get floaters, where you look at a white background and then you see stuff floating in your vision. It's like solidified crap on the inside of your eye floating around. And I have so many, and it's just like, it's hard. It becomes hard to read at times. Sometimes it's worse than others, but it's like, they're just, they blur the vision, and it's difficult, It's crap. Getting old, hell. My granddad always used to say that. Getting old, hell. Are you aware that Quentin James has a bird named Emmett that is annoyed with him and refuses to fly? That's Bent Tom. No. He also recently got a Schecter Sun Valley Super Shredder and a Zoom modeler. Well, I didn't know any of that. I didn't. What do I think of Friedman Smallbox 50? Really cool. That's a great amp. Actually, probably the amp that I would bond with the most, in his line these days, having a nice kind of, a channel that you can set up clean or almost clean. And then the other one, that's your gain sound. Really great, simple, it's got the BE channel. It's got the more plexi kind of channel that you can do lower gain. Very cool. Cool amp. Noah Bottomer is there in the top chat. He says, I got a Metal 12 recently, but yours sounds better. Come on now. Great demo. Do you use any DAW control surface or just a mouse and keyboard? I use a mouse and keyboard. I don't have any control kind of thing. I've always, just used the mouse. So, and it's worked for me up till now, but would be cool to have Raven or something. Try it, Just another thing to learn. That's the only thing. Another learning curve. I don't know if I can handle. Not having you do rig rundowns was a miss on Premier's side. Thanks. I think I would have been good at it. One thing that always bugs me is when interviewers interrupt. And I find as great as there's some of that going on there. It's just like, just let the person speak and finish what they're saying and stuff, and then have a natural segue into where it goes from there and all that. And I think, without tooting my own horn, I think I'm good at that. Asking the question and getting the hell out of the way and letting them go to where they're going to go with what they're going to say, and just knowledge of the rigs and stuff like that, as well. Because I'm such a geek that I know a lot about these rigs, before I go to the show, I already have, like probably a lot of you guys out there, you've got that knowledge of like I know what so-and-so's using, and so you can speak from, okay, so the pickup in your guitar you've been using since, the mid 80s, I think, right? And it's blah, 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 and let them talk after that, that kind of thing. Anyway, Plexico up there in the top chat again. He says, Pete, when are you getting a single coil middle pickup in your signature guitar? In Natural too, Karina, picky. It sounds like you need your own signature guitar. But that's why Sur exists as a custom. Some people forget sometimes that Sur is just at the core, a custom shop, right? And you can order the exact guitar that you want and, have your own signature. But because they all start out that way. That's how my signature guitar started. I spec'd it out as a, the black one that's in here somewhere wasn't a signature guitar. It was just a guitar that I spec'd out. And then they asked me if I wanted to make it a signature model. But Karina, I've never owned a Karina guitar, I'd love to have a Karina Flying V. That's for sure. Maybe a Karina Explorer, but even more, I'd like to have a Karina Flying V. God, I'd love one. I'd love even one of the early 80s Gibson reissue ones, that they came out with, 82 or whatever, when they pretty much accurately nailed the V. And those are really expensive now, those, I think, even. But anyways, I digress. John really likes Karina. He seems to dig it. Vincent has a interesting question here. Oh, what about the Angry Charlie from JHS? That's from Daniel. As a Marshall pedal? Yeah, cool. Basically a governor is the Angry Charlie. So, and the original Marshall Governor was a great plexi in a box kind of pedal, or JCM 800 in a box, really. Really, really good. So I would agree with that. Angry Charlie is a nice one. I used one for a while. It's also the Andy Timmons pedal, by the way, is based on that pedal and then tweaked. That's another one to look at. I like the Andy Timmons pedal. Good sounding. My song Dirty Town started out as the Andy Timmons pedal demo for JHS that I did. So I wrote track for the demo for that. I used to use the Sweet Tea by JHS on my board I used it for some touring one year with Melissa Etheridge, where I had a little board and a Badger. I was doing a run like that. PT15 Bobby Valdez says, is that the IR version you use? That's my amp, my signature amp. Yes. Vincent, anyway, you were asking about U-shaped resistance curves as separating good reactive loads from bad ones. Can you explain this in more detail? And what would the torpedo reload be considered? Well, okay, so yeah, a lot of the load devices out there on the market, and the two notes would fall into this category and stuff. If you look at the impedance curve of them, they actually kind of resemble a U. And so if I were to draw, I'll just draw it for you. Easiest thing. You find a piece of paper and a pen, pencil, an old string package. This will work. Okay. So a lot of the curves, if you look at them, this looks like two boobs. I'm not going to show you that. That's a terrible drawing of okay, wait. Kind of like this. It's still going to look like two boobs, but that's maybe he should call it the boob resistance curve. They look like that, a lot of them, when you look at the graph. Okay, but what an actual impedance curve looks like is kind of like this. The bottom one. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, this is impedance. There's a low resonant peak. So this is if you do the impedance curve of an actual speaker, there's a low resonant peak in a cabinet, right? And they're all a little different. Low resonant peak and then a high rise that just kind of goes up like this, right? There's this. It actually goes out further, like whatever, and then it rises up. But there's this kind of continuous high rise. A lot of them do this kind of broad thing down here and then a broad thing here and do this. So they're kind of simulating it with a big bump on the lows and a big bump on the highs. How does that translate to sound? It sounds a little different than if you get the true impedance curve. Now, what Sir did, I don't want to sound like, too much of a fanboy. It's just the truth. If you look at their impedance curve, if you measure their impedance curve using the appropriate measurement device, and you can lay it on top of basically a green backloaded 412, and it mirrors this curve. Okay. But a lot of them will look like this when you do this. So they're a little different. They still sound better than a resistive load, and they sound pretty good. Is the amp going to respond exactly the same? No, it's the whole thing with the Sir one was they tried to nail this curve, green backloaded. And by the way, a 212 open back looks pretty similar too. It changes, like where that peak is can change a little bit in the low end, and on the high end where the rise happens can change a little bit, but they still look the same, like a real impedance curve, right? This is not exactly what a speaker does, so to the amp and the way the amp responds. So all the Sir guys were trying to do when they made it is duplicate a real impedance curve, and then hopefully the amp would think it was plugged into a speaker and respond as such. Plus, that the amp responds a certain way with a true impedance curve, and like for the safety of the amp and all that. Because it's a bit of an unknown if you have a reactive load with a different, like, so if it's swinging up, however many ohms or whatever at a certain, and if it's going way down lower and wider, and the amp is kind of, if it goes up higher and it's sort of unloaded down at like whatever, I don't know. I'm not describing this very well, But what I'm getting at is if you've got a load that is making the amp's going into a load, and the load isn't exactly like a speaker in a cabinet, does that affect the amplifier sound as well as things like, is the amp happy seeing something that's not actually a speaker? So that's the whole thing with the curves and stuff. Now, there's a lot of amps. I mean, the UA and the two notes and different ones have that kind of U style curve. There's a lot of years since those designs have come out now, and I think for the most part they seem pretty, like, I haven't heard a lot of people having big problems with their amps and stuff like, or anything like that. Seems like they're pretty cool, pretty reliable, right? Just from, sheer time and all that. But if you get a reactive load that has a really that's radically different than what a speaker, that's where I would worry a little bit about my amp, my vintage Marshall or whatever, 100 or whatever, being cranked into, and taking out the output transformer. Because what SIR's fear is, I think, is that it won't happen overnight. It'll be a gradual thing where you're gradually killing the output transformer or your amp, and then one day it might just not work, or one day it might just be like, why does my amp sound like crap all of a sudden? Like, over time it just seems like it's not what it used to be. These things called flyback voltages and stuff that can happen, I guess, if the amp's not loaded exactly right. So that's the concern. You bet, Vincent. Vincent says, thank you, I appreciate that, your question. I do. Yeah, the two notes and stuff, that they seem really, pretty good. And the UA, I use it sometimes. I've got it here, sitting right there on top of, and it sounds good, and I use it, and I think those are good devices. They don't sound exactly the same as the, and that's okay. I mean, maybe you can make up for it with EQ or little things, like whatever, whatever sounds good. But you just want to be careful too with your old amps. That's all. Pete, what's the best multi-effect up to 1,000 euros? I would probably try and get a multi-effect. I mean, you might want to get a Helix or something. If you want a floor-based thing or all-in-one, maybe a used, what's it, the FM3? Is that the one? That's the new Axe-Fx. What's it, FX8 from Axe-Fx or something? That'd probably be great if you could get a used one. I bet you could get one of those for under 1,000 euros, right? Pretty sure. That's probably a really good thing to have for a multi-effect. That'll do everything, or a Helix. If you can find a used Helix, they do a lot, multi-effects, I'm thinking, those would be the two I would probably look at. Whether you get them in the rack format or the floor-based ones. I guess the Axe-Fx one is only available, the FX8, right? Only available on the floor. Mitchell's up there in the top chat, and he says, can you talk about how you keep digital noise out of your guitar studio setup? Digital noise, like computer type noise that comes through the pickups and stuff. You just got to get away from the monitor. That's the digital noise thing. Dave and John had, somewhat of a discussion about this last night, like where noise is coming from. So if you've got noise in your rig, you can kind of, by process of elimination, figure out where it's coming from. If you just plug your guitar right into the most basic thing, let's say your amp or your whatever you're using, let's say it's a Helix or an Axe-Fx, right? Just do that and then listen through the speakers to what you've got. First of all, turn your guitar off and listen to the unit plugged into whatever you're plugging into, whether it's your guitar head into a cabinet or whether it's a Axe-Fx plugged into studio monitors or whatever it is. Just eliminate everything else, all your pedals and everything. Plug your guitar in, but turn the volume down on the guitar and listen to just the unit at idle, maybe with a gain sound or something that, if there's noise there now and it sounds like a buzz, you got a ground loop. Guitar off, nothing else plugged in, just that thing, you know, you've got some sort of grounding issue that you need to track down. It should sound like just maybe a little bit of idle hiss, or like, you know, very small, you know. Now, if you roll up the volume on your guitar and all of a sudden there's buzz, nothing else plugged in, no pedals, no nothing. Now you're getting EMF or EMI, electromagnetic interference, coming into the pickups of the guitar. And if you move the guitar around with single coils and you hear it changing and maybe there's a quieter spot, you know, that's just stuff coming in the pickups that you may or may not have better results by shielding the guitar, making sure the guitar is shielded and grounded properly. A tech can look at it and stuff. But that's the start. Start with the volume off on the guitar, listen to just the amp or effect plugged into speakers or whatever, idle noise, roll the volume up on the guitar and listen to what increases in sound while you're holding the strings, right? Obviously, if you let the strings go, then it's ungrounded or whatever. Like your body's not grounding it and you'll get more buzz. After that, plug in your pedal board or one pedal at a time, ideally, and start listening to the sound and do the same thing, like volume down on the guitar with a pedal. If you plug in your pedal board and the volume's down on the guitar and you put that into the amp and all of a sudden you've got buzz that wasn't there before, you've got some grounding issue with the pedal board and the amp, and maybe you need to, you know, lift something on the board, or there's an issue with, now it gets complicated where, oh, do I need an isolation transformer or something at some point in my pedal board, or, and it's complicated and hard for me to troubleshoot at that point. But by process of elimination, that's the easiest thing. Michael says, he's up there in the top chat, he says, AC30 amps in the zone. You already got me to buy a super reverb. I know, I got to do it. I need a video like that because I've been mainly focusing on product videos lately because I've got so much to do. I've got people waiting on videos. Honestly, like a lot of people waiting on videos. They're kind of taking me a long time these days for a couple different reasons. Like I'm spending multiple days per video. And I didn't used to do that. Like back when I, say when I was in Santa Monica, my studio there, I would make a video in a day sometimes, or maybe a day and a half tops. I could knock the whole thing out. I would do a track in 3 or 4 hours, complete the rest of the video, and then maybe edit the video the next day, which would take me a few hours, and I'd put it out. Nowadays, it's taking me 3 days to make a video, or maybe more sometimes, and I need to trim that down, and it's just because of the way I'm doing it. Anytime you add multiple camera angles, I'm also working in Luna, which is the UA DAW, and I love it because I love the sound, but it's taking me a little longer to do certain things like drum programming and mixing. Bouncing out just sort of takes longer in Luna than it does in Logic. It'd be a big deal if you're just doing a mix and you're bouncing out one track, but when I'm bouncing out 8 individual guitar tracks because I want to show the sound of each isolated, it takes a long time. It can take me a couple hours, something that used to take me 15 minutes. So anyways, that's why I haven't, but I know I need to get a video done like the amps in the zone video and get some more of that kind of content going, because my YouTube languishes otherwise. Is that the right word? It just sort of like, it doesn't grow, you know, if I don't put out, unfortunately, the kind of clickbaity videos, amps in the zone, right? You know, or whatever, like a lot of people watch those. So I need to get more of those going too. It's hard. It's just striking a balance of everything you got to get done, I guess. What else are you guys talking about here? I'm looking down through the chat here. Would be nice to see another in-depth review of the Origin Effects Revival Overdrive, but I did one. I would do the same thing again. You know, I would just write another song and come up with basically the same thing. So I don't know if it would make sense for me to do it again, because I did a pretty in-depth. I did a full review of that pedal as well as the small one, so you can get a pretty good example of what it sounds like. It's a great sounding pedal, not real high gain. You know, you probably need to hit it with a clon or a tube screamer in front to get like super sustainy stuff. I think it was originally designed around the JTM 45, but great sounding pedal. Buzz is up there in the top chat. What's up, man? He says, any ideas or theories about how a modeled effect helix or similar reacts to the front end of the amp? For example, would a modeled tube screamer react the same way as a pedal would? I've done some testing on that. Like, for example, on my helix board, I have a board that's based around a helix, and in one of the loops on that board is an archer, which is basically a clon. And I went back and forth and tested the Minotaur drive in the helix and the Archer. And truth be told, I could get it so close that it was like, does it really even make sense to have the other, the pedal on the board? And, there's the Minotaur or whatever in the Helix. That's their Klon style drive. So they're really, really close. I felt the same way about the FX8, which is a great sounding unit. It's a little tough to program, but if you use the editor, it's not the computer editor that's the Axe-Fx product, FX8. And I went back and forth trying to compare, I think, a Memory Man at one point delay with a modulated delay in the FX8. And as my experience always is with fractal stuff, I find that if you put the time in, you can make it sound really great. You have to go through and tweak. There's a lot of parameters to tweak and things to do, but the effects themselves are really terrific and powerful. And so when I went in and I filtered it just right, I spent time EQing the delay and, adding drive to it and then getting the mod just right and stuff and really, nailing the rate and the depth and all that. It was like, whoa, I can really get it like almost nailed to the actual Memory Man if I spend the time. So long story short, I'm a believer that you can actually get really close to a lot of the pedals out there with the modeled stuff. There's some stuff that you wouldn't, for example, anything germanium, a treble booster, it's too organic with the volume control on the guitar and all that. Maybe you could duplicate it at one setting on the volume of the guitar, but part of the sound of those pedals or any kind of fuzz that responds to low and high, the impedance changing. Stupid chair squeaking. One of these days I'll get a chair like we talked about weeks ago. But anyways, any kind of the fuzzes and stuff. It's now if you get a full on like Big Muff style fuzz, that's pretty easy to duplicate in something like a Helix, I find. But anything like a fuzz face, it's tough because to me, so much of the magic is in the volume on the guitar rolling up and down of those pedals. So I guess it depends on the pedal effect, but a lot of them you can get really, really close with the modeled stuff. That's true. There's something amazing though about being able to reach down and turn the knob on the pedal that I still just love. It's hard for me to get around that. That's part of the modular thing about a pedal board is so fun. And if you're used to that, it's, tough to not have, I guess. Your Logic-based videos always sounded great, says Lauren. Thank you. Maybe save Luna for albums and singles. Yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun working on it, to be honest. I'm not so much having fun programming drums and stuff, but the sound of the tape and the Neve summing is so cool. It's so gooey. I don't know how else to describe it. Speaking of gooey, I'm going to have a bite of this because I'm hungry. Revival was really good, says Alan. That's my video for Revival Drive, right? Thank you. Or maybe you're talking about the pedal itself. Michael is asking if I ever wrote a riff for a pedal demo and then I decided it's too good and I use it on an album. That was my whole last album. Not the entire thing, but a lot of it. Songs like In Good Company started out as the Bogner Lyndhurst compressor demo. If you go back and listen. Or the Andy Timmons pedal, that was Dirty Town. The riff for Dirty Town, I turned it into a full song. On the Bogner Lyndhurst thing, I actually used some of the tracks, like my solo from the demo video for the pedal is the one that's in the actual song. I just went back and opened up the session and then built the song around the session. And sometimes I would replace. Sometimes I started over. I think on Dirty Town, because it's real drums and everything. So I started from scratch with that. All Is Not Lost. That track, the 6/8 track, I used a bunch of the original tracks, which were cut years earlier in like 2012 or 13 or something like that. So yeah, I'll go through and listen. It's kind of fun when I make a new record to do that, like to go back and listen to a bunch of the old pedal demos and go, oh, I forgot about this one. Like, because I do a lot of tracks every year for these things. And it's neat to go back and listen and see and mine those videos for ideas. For sure. Struggling to get a good lead sound, says John Hutchison. I have mini drive, boost, and fuzz pedals. Amps are Fender Princeton, Victory Sheriff, pretty different. On a 2061X, all different. Often sounds too compressed. Well, what type of lead sound are you after? What are some of your favorite players? Like, what's your dream tone? If I could get the sound on this song, I'd be happy. Ask, maybe tell me that. Because if it's Gilmore or something, it's pretty much it is. It's like a fuzz, like a Big Muff or something into the Princeton at low volume should get you. You should be able to dupe that kind of thing at a low volume pretty easy with something like Princeton, I would think. That kind of cleaner amp with the Big Muff style thing. Depends what you want to do. Honestly, how loud are you turning up the amps? Are you looking for a drive pedal to augment an already dirty amp? Or are you running the amps pretty much clean and you need a distortion pedal? So there's a lot of variables there. Let me know if in another comment here, and then let's see if I can help more. What else we got here? Can you talk about the Ethos TWE1 Overdrive? It's a cool pedal based on train wrecky kind of sound. I had it on my board for a while, and it was a pretty cool amp-like overdrive. I used it for quite a while on my board, actually. I found it was like slightly like the settings on it. You can get pretty radical, like with the different switches. For the kind of that simulate like a 212 cabinet, I think, or like 4. There's like different switches on there to really mix up the voicing. And I just ended up switching it out for a Bogner Blue. Just for me, I find with the Blue, I can almost put all the knobs on 5, and it does this kind of plexi-ish thing that's just basic and kind of what I needed. And I ended up using that a lot, like say on the Classic Rock Show tour, for a low gain kind of marshally sound. It was just simpler. But I like that Ethos pedal and in kind of a train wreck style drive. Seemed pretty cool. I don't know how much. If there's anything else I can answer exactly about it. It has a lot of voicing switches, so if you've got a bright amp or a dark amp, you can probably match it up, and it's quite versatile in that sense. Aux in Sessions, is there a product with tone without high price? That's from Mark. He's in Canada. The Sur Reactive Load to me is the lower cost version that will get you a great recorded tone. They're, what is it, $5.99 or something. The Aux is terrific. It's about double the price. So, and it does a lot with the effects and everything built in. So if you want to, if you maybe already have some effects like reverb and delay, you can do those things in a different way. And you just want great recorded sound and you don't want to spend that much, I'd go with the reactive load. Thank you for the question, Mark. And thanks for doing the super chat. Steven says your videos are great, Pete. Quality over quantity anytime. Thank you. Yeah, I like to think so. If I put out at least a couple, like 2 a week, I'm happy these days. I don't like putting up more than that, to be honest. Andrea's in Italy. He says, are string trees really necessary? Depends on the guitar. You have a Charvel DK24, and it seems that they are an issue for tuning stability. Does that guitar have a... Yeah, I would take it off and probably put staggered tuners. If you can get a set of, staggered height tuners, which are pretty readily available, I would put those on that guitar and get anywhere you can stop friction. And the other thing you could look into for that guitar is the Wilkinson bridge. If it's not a locking tremolo on that guitar, which I'm assuming it's not because you've got a string tree and all that. If it's got a Strat style, some sort of trim, see if you can get the locking saddles at least for your bridge from Wilkinson, or maybe replace it with the Wilkinson style bridge I use on my signature guitar, and you'll find a big improvement with tuning. That said, the nut's got to be cut just great. So you need a nut that's maybe a tusk nut that's real slippery, cut just right, with the slots not too narrow, and and all those things can help. But I don't really think, long story short, even on a Strat style headstock, if you've got graduated height tuners, you don't need a string tree. I don't even have that on my vintage Strat. I got original tuners, and I just wind the G all the way down and the plain strings down kind of far, and it's fine on that guitar. They will pop out if I hit the guitar super hard. If I played like Philip Ace or something and really nailed the strings, I might have an issue, but I don't really most of the time. So you know, it's okay. It just depends on your style, I guess. Noah's up there in the top chat, and he says, with lots of people starting guitar while isolated, do you know of any groups coordinating contributions to make basic but quality gear more accessible for newbies or students? Not really. Not that I can think of, other than like kind of one-off situations where I know, like, you know, not lately, but you made me think of like when Eddie Van Halen donated a whole bunch of guitars to the LA school district. He had like a ton of extra, you know, PV, when he'd already switched and was doing his Fender deal. I guess he had a lot of like the like PV Wolfgangs around, and yeah, you know, like the maybe the overseas made ones and stuff like that. And he just had a ton of those, and he donated them all to the LA school district, which I thought was amazing. It's a great use of a guitar, as opposed to trying to sell them for money. Or, I mean, he could have signed them all and sold them and probably made a ton of money, and instead he donated them. And I thought it was a really nice move. That was a number of years ago, though. It was probably at least 10 years ago. So, anyways, nothing I can think of though in particular at the moment. Let's see here. What else we got? How can I learn rhythm for playing best? Any advice? 777 Danny. Always try and play with time, a time reference. Because segueing from talking about playing guitar in isolation and people learning while we're kind of, you know, bands aren't getting together as much or at all and things like that. Anything you can do to play with a time, some sort of, you know, timekeeper, meaning a metronome or a drum machine or something, or jamming along to tracks and recording yourself maybe and listening back and scrutinizing. It's really important, you know, to play with time. If you're practicing soloing, having a looper pedal and, you know, recording a rhythm and then playing to that, as opposed to just freeform soloing where you've got no time reference. Anything you can do to play with time, you know, is what's important for developing good rhythm. And then really listening to yourself and really listening to great rhythm guitar players. A while ago, I was listening to Rocker by AC/DC. It's on Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, which is not an album I listen to a lot. But that song, man, there's the middle break in the middle where Malcolm's playing rhythm guitar and the drums stop for a minute. And, you know, something like that, whatever his rhythm part that he's playing. And it goes for like a few bars where it's just him. And oh my God, it's so good. Like his groove was so just deadly on rhythm guitar, you know, his right hand and left hand too, the way he would, you know, mute and everything. And then Angus comes in. It's just those guys were such a team. But like really listening to players like that and learning great rhythm guitar parts, you know, is so important. Nile, you know, there's some great Nile Rodgers lessons on YouTube where he talks about his style. You know, just really fun. And then learn some stuff like that, like some funk and some great, you know, Malcolm Young, whatever, and practice with a metronome and really scrutinize and say to yourself, do I sound like that? Like, do I sound as good? I don't know how else, you know, it's just developing your ear and really listening. Because I hear a lot of players that are amazing and with a lot of technique and stuff like that, but maybe when it comes to rhythm guitar, even the lead guitar can sound kind of wonky when it comes to time and phrasing. I also hear a lot of players that are really incredible with time and phrasing, super locked in. So there's something about the whole new, you know, like the neo soul thing, or, you know, players like Mateus or Laurie, you know, the phrasing's pretty incredible. And so kids are hearing these younger players play with really amazing phrasing. And part of the sound is that super locked in rhythm. And kind of really sophisticated things going on with phrasing. And then you're seeing younger players replicating that and kind of nailing it, like getting the groove and stuff. So it's just a matter of, I guess, being influenced by by players with great groove and feel, and then trying to cop those vibes. I just missed a top chat. Where was it? Here, I'm going to find it. I think it's Noah. Oh, maybe that was Noah up there in the top chat. I missed. Jamie Avila also sent me a $4.99 super sticker. Thanks, man. You guys are too cool. I appreciate it. Singles was asking, am I much of a home cook? Not really, but more so these days. And I actually really enjoy it these days. So, but I'm making, I'll make myself like a turkey burger, yeah, like simple stuff like that. And I confess I ate out for, 30 years and didn't do a lot of eating at home. And it's just, but now I'm quite enjoying it. I'm making food at home more. I mean, like simple stuff, you make, veggies or salad and then grill some fish and stuff. I'll do that. And I quite enjoy that, like really basic stuff, really basic paleo style. It can be pretty good for me, and I like it these days, making food at home. I am getting a little like cabin fevery, always there, but that's life these days. That's what we're all going through, right? Renan says, Lightspeed Overdrive versus King of Tone. What would be your take? I don't know the Lightspeed Overdrive. Sorry, that one I haven't played. And what's your take on the ODR1? I've done a little bit of that. I did it. It's in one of my videos on, was it Under the Radar Drives or something? It's cool for that Nashville kind of, I think of it the same way I would use a Timmy or something. This pedal, by the way, is another great. This one, the little Timmy that MXR did. If you guys haven't tried this, I really like this little guy. What a great sounding pedal for a natural ampy kind of, just that organic drive. No, I don't know, like any kind of, is it dirty? Is it clean? Americana kind of like, or country, anything that's not hard rock metal. That pedal is really great for getting that kind of tone going. And the ODR1 is pretty cool too for that. Similar thing. That's why a lot of people, Tim Pierce really likes it. John Shanks, folks like that. Yeah. What else we got here? Alon says, on the subject of tremolos, is there a good tremolo that can do both old school, beautiful sounding and the nice modern thing? Oh, like a tremolo, not like I was thinking vibrato bridge. You're talking about a pedal, right? Is that what you mean? Pedal or tremolo bar? When I think of a tremolo bar, like a Bigsby, or like the whole like Chris Isaac, what's that song? With the bends that I'm thinking of that has that super cool. What's the song I'm talking about? Can't think right now the name of the song, but that beautiful bends on the, I think that was actually done on a Strat, and I always assumed it was Bigsby though. So there you go. So a Strat is still, like the bridge, the Wilkinson that's on my guitar. I feel like I can get both modern stuff and almost get Floyd Rossi sounding stuff, and it'll stay in tune. But if you mean a pedal, probably the most versatile trem pedal that I've tried that gets a ton of different sounds is the Flint, because it's got the great reverb built in, and it's also got the really awesome kind of almost unified like harmonic tremolo, as well as the more choppy stuff. So I would look at a Flint if you're talking about a pedal that covers a lot of ground, but there's so many of them out there. There's great sounding tremolo pedals. I always really like the mellow tremolo from Tone Freak. That's a really good sounding pedal. It's not super modern with a ton of different things, but it always had a really great sort of it was a bit of a one trick pony, but a great trick. Quick sound setup for you. Fill and lead tone on Arms Around Your Love. That's Paul Daskell. Arms Around Your Love, the Chris Cornell track. Yogi used to actually play the solo on that when I think about it. Although I played it with him in 2016 where I played the solo. I would just use my standard, the PT100 on the drive channel with probably the Archer in front was probably what I used when I did that. That song is funny because it's basically the Stairway to Heaven chords in the solo, So yeah, I would just go, Plexi Marshall with a boost in front, that kind of thing, and some echo. How to get a U2 edge tone, says Jamie. Well, his sound, when I think about it, when I think about the early days, the main thing he did was a real chimey top boost AC30 with a memory man. That's the main thing. But then later on, of course, he's got a huge rig now. So he incorporates, Tweet amps now too. He's got his own signature Fender Tweet Amp, right? I think it's like a takeoff on a Tweed Deluxe. And I think that's more the grunty kind of drive that he, amp like drive that, he used like around the 90s. He started using a lot of different fuzzes and drives and things like that. And he even had like Line 6 made a, because you remember their drive modeler, the gold pedal, they made him a rack mount one that was like MIDI switchable. I don't think that was ever commercially available, but he used to use that a lot, different drives and fuzzes and things for different songs, like, Elevation and all these different songs that have all these different types of. I remember there's great drive tones on the All That You Can't Leave Behind. Was that the album? The 2001 album that had, was it Vertigo? Is that the song? Great guitar tone on that. But, it was overdrives into, I think, Tweeds and AC30s. And who knows, there's probably there's got to be a great Gilmore-ish site. Like, do you guys know that site Gilmore-ish, which is an amazing resource for David Gilmour effects and tone? There's got to be sites like that for the Edge, I'm sure, right? That some of you out there probably know that you could recommend. But to me, in the early days, I mean, he even talks about like when they were doing the first record, he had his Explorer and that was it. And they were like, okay, well, let's get a different guitar to do overdubs with. And he's like, what guitar? This is the guitar. This is the band's guitar. He had the one guitar, and it was the AC30 Memory Man, and that to me is a huge part of his. It's like when I think of the Who, or Stevie Ray Vaughan is a great example. Yes, he played around with Marshalls later and a fuzz face, and he had the Dumbles, but really, if you get a super reverb, a tube screamer, a Vox Wah, and a 63 Strat, it's amazing. And that, or a vibroverb. I remember plugging into a vibroverb. It's hard for me to say that. Vibroverb, for some reason. Hard thing for me to say. I remember plugging into Lyle Workman's vibroverb, and 115, right? Very unique amp. And with his old Strat, and going, oh my God, there it is. That's the sound. It sounds 70% like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now, if I could only play like him with the hands, but the tone of the amp and the speaker and the guitar was so much to do with that 115 that I thought of when I thought Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yes, he used other things, and yes, most of the sound is in the hands and all that, but that 115 speaker with that blackface Fender circuit and a good Strat was a huge part of the sound. So when I think of the Edge and the chord tonal DNA of like probably 65 or 70% of everything he ever recorded, and the songs that we all know and love, it's that chimey AC30 top boost thing with either a Strat or the Explorer and a Memory Man. Yeah. Yeah. What else we got here? Pete, any recommendations for a reverb pedal? Depends if you want the ethereal thing or if you want more spring. One of my favorite springs is the True Spring from Source Audio. What a great sounding spring reverb. And there's also tremolo in there. One of my favorite ethereal, there's a new one coming out actually that I know of that's going to be really great for people that want that simple kind of shoegaze or ambient thing. But I can't talk about that yet. So like if I do that sound, I use the Eventide on my board. I've got an H9. I use the black hole algorithm. So the algorithms I use in the H9, I use the spring a lot for vintage spring thing. I use the, one of the halls, there's an earth reverb or something in there. And I use that a lot if I want kind of just something that sits behind the guitar sound, but doesn't sound obviously verbed out. And then if I want a real ethereal thing that's beautiful, I'll go to the black hole and tweak that. So that's what I do there. And then between that and the True Spring for a really, really exceptional sounding spring reverb pedal, I also have a Flint that I like a lot. Like I said, I think the Flint's a great pedal for reverb and also for tremolo to have if you need a good all-round, something to do those sounds on your board. John Denton says, your favorite band? Gotta pick the Beatles. Favorite band of all time. That was what got me into music, really. The Who and the Beatles. But overall the Beatles, you know. No, I didn't miss the top chat. I don't think. We have 346 people online. What's up, good people? Good to have you here. I like your lead sound on Dirty Town. I tend to keep the amps clean. That was from John. So the lead sound on Dirty Town was actually the PT with using the Helix. Dirty Town was kind of I ended up making a video for that song. Of part of it is the recording of the song. You can see the video on YouTube. And I'm using the Helix actually with the PT100. And I'm using one of the drives, I think, in the Helix, probably the Minotaur. Also, there's a fuzz in the bridge. That would have been a fuzz coming out of the Helix. I don't remember which one, probably the big muffy sounding one. But so in the kind of breakdown section, you know, I modeled Dirty Town on kind of the Joe Satriani Satch Boogie model. I wanted to do a boogie kind of, you know, kind of, you know, Hot for Teacher meets Satch Boogie kind of groove, because I thought nobody's doing that now, so I'll do a kind of an ode to that style. And I loved in Satch Boogie how the whole middle section with the weird tapping part with the kind of flangey sounding guitar is not blues and not that boogie thing. It just goes left and I love that. I love how he could do that in a song. I thought I want to try and do that. So in the middle of Dirty Town, I did the same thing. I just went left field and ambient, kind of, you know, more ethereal guitars, and used the fuzz for the solo and did some different stuff. And then it busts back into so it was a total rip-off in a way. Not a rip-off harmonically or anything, because it's not anything like the same structurally, but I wanted to do a boogie groove into a ethereal sounding thing, essentially. Yeah. Songwriting experiments are fun like that, by the way. If you guys ever get stuck in a rut, I remember somebody once saying, copy the structure of a song, like A, B, A, C, B, whatever, like copy the structure and the kind of like, so if the song goes halftime in the middle or goes to a reggae groove or whatever it is, like copy that, but don't copy anything else and write your own song with that kind of thing. Now you've given yourself a bit of a framework to work in. So pick like a favorite song and then just like write another song, but using the exact same structure. Just experiment with it, because it'll make you do things that maybe you wouldn't have done before, you know? So that was kind of, I guess that's sort of what I did with Dirty Town, is copy like a vibe. Okay, the overall vibe of, you know, I went a little further with it, like copying the drum feel and then going into and then the ethereal thing in the middle and just copying that, but then writing my own song around that, you know? Do you ever get asked to demo bass gear? Yeah, I do. And I've done a few, like the Atomic Bass box I did a video of recently for Atomic amps. It's a bass modeling pedal. What else have I done for bass? I did the Getty Lee preamp for Sans Amp, Tech 21. I have it right here in my rack. I still use that thing sometimes. I have a nice sounding direct, you know, typically Sans Amp makes great sounding stuff for bass. I had my buddy John Button join me on that, and we did a version of YYZ. And so that was fun if you haven't seen that video. But mainly people think of me as a guitar player, which I am mainly. So I find the bass videos don't get as many views, but, you know, it's a fun thing to make a bass video sometimes. So yeah. Ian says he's playing his latest gear acquisition, a Takamine Classical, dated to 1978. That's nice. They made great guitars, man. They still do. It's a great company, really nice people. God, the Takamine people are awesome. Really sweet. You have a beautiful voice. Why, thank you. Why, thank you. Do you also think about singing? You never close your eyes anymore. Oh, sorry. I'll stop. I do. I sing. And by the way, I'm putting out a song here pretty soon where I'm singing lead. You know, it's coming out soon. I don't know when exactly, but it'll be out with my Bob Clearmountain Part 2 video, because he mixed it and it coincides with that and stuff. I got to get it done. So that I promise over the next, you know, that's coming soon here in the next month or so. I'll just put it out as a single. One day it'll show up and you'll be like, that's you singing? That's weird. Eric Johnson says, how close are two Dirty Shirley pedals compared to a twin sister? Oh, geez, I don't know. I can't tell much of a difference though. YouTube and good headphones. I don't know, honestly. Dirty Shirley is one of my favorite amps that Dave makes. Really, really nice amp. One of the better clean amps he makes. I find you can get a terrific clean sound by turning the gain down to like 2 and turning the master all the way up, and then just varying the volume for what a great sounding clean sound it is. Really nice with pedals and things. But I haven't actually personally tried a twin sister, not yet. So it's something I haven't tried. I should. Okay, what else we got here? Back kind of far in the chat. I should move down. Catch up here. What else we got here? Oh, good idea for the framework, says Arthur. Yeah, framework of a song and then copy the structure, and it can help. Like, the exact length of sections and things, right? Like bar length and, okay, 8 bars going into a, 4-bar B section or whatever, and then into the chorus, and just copy all that, but then write a different song. You could even do things like, okay, here's something that happens a lot in songs that I find people do. They change like 2 chords per bar. Right? And then they kind of have trouble getting out of that groove. Right? And getting into the next section of the song, maybe you want to hold a chord for a whole note and go to halftime. Right? So you know what I mean? So like, let's say this is your tune. I don't know. I'm just making something up on the fly and thinking about it in my head. But let's say you go. And then da 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 dum, 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 da 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 dum, da dum, da 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 dum. Right, so like getting out of the feel of that right, and then doing something where you give it a break. I know, something completely different then. I'm trying to write something, but anyway, I like the verse and where it started. Whatever, that could be the chorus there. I kind of like where it went, but anyways, I don't know. Sorry, somebody could steal that and write a song with it. My point was that that getting out of the groove of the chunka, and then holding a chord maybe for the next part, and then changing maybe the key or something for the chorus, and not doing the 2 chord per bar thing. Mixing up the thing, so that you're not still doing the 2 chords per bar thing through the B section and into the chorus. That's the kind of thing that listening to someone else's song can help give you, because you'll find like, oh, they're switching up the feel in the B section. It goes halftime, and then in the chorus, it changed keys, and so all those little things you can copy, but then just write your own song. That's kind of what I did with Dirty Town. Little songwriting experiments that'll help break you out of ruts. Hope that makes sense. So there's your next demo track, says Bobby. Yeah, generally speaking, that's how I write my demo tracks. I'll think about the pedal, I'll plug in and I'll play one chord and get a thing, and then it's like, oh, where does this go? And then I'll, like, so yeah. Let's see here. What else have we got? The Dirty Shirley gets a wonderful high gain sound from a Buxom boost. Buxom boost is a great boost with the low cut on it. That'll help you keep the low end tight. That's a nice, and of course Dave probably, sure he probably helped the voice it, listening to it through the, that amp maybe, or similar amps. So I like how Rush changes time signatures during the Spirit of Radio, says SD Design. I would totally agree with that. I think that that's a great. I love the Rush reggae thing because there's such a, you know, I think they were really, you know, New World Band too does that, right? Too. Oh God, what's the other song that I love so much? Is it Digital Man off of Signals? God, that is such a great track, and the chords in the chorus are so cool. With the, I copied it in the Anodyne Providence Anodyne chorus video. I played that song. I love his chords in the song Digital Man. But when they did that, the reggae thing, it was so cool because they were such a technical kind of band, you know, and the prog thing, but it was so organic when they'd throw that little bit of that element in there. It was a great release from the straight kind of feel of, you know, Spirit of Radio, you know, with all the crazy intro and everything that's going on, and it's so proggy and everything. And then like the reggae thing, the halftime bridge, I agree, it's brilliant, you know, really cool. I love songs that do that. They take you somewhere else, you know. A bridge can be such a wonderful thing in a song, you know. What do you think the benefits are going with a real amp head like a BE 100 compared to the Synergy version? I don't know, honestly. I mean, it's like I'd have to listen to the preamp version versus there's something about an integrated amp, which I think that we kind of went through in the like, I think the preamp power amp thing is cool, and that's a thing. But there's something about everything being in the one box and all that, and the whole thing working together as a unit. I don't know what that is, but you saw it happen kind of from the 80s into the 90s, where people kind of moved back to using heads full force. I mean, it was like racks sort of took over for a while, a little bit, part of the business. There was always heads, but then people moved away from racks, you know, and went back to the integrated amp being, as kind of boutique became a thing in the 90s. I think as Soldano grew, and then you had custom audio, and you saw Top Hats and Matchless and people making integrated amp heads. And some of these companies like Soldano, they had the preamp and everything. But the preamps never really, you don't see people talking about that amazing tone, iconic sound on such and such a record of this preamp into a power amp. Name me one. It just never really was a thing. It's like they're cool, you know, and they were great tools, you know, rack preamps and rack power amps and stuff. I mean, I can't really think of any that where it's like a name. If you guys think of any great sounds. I mean, like, you know, Eddie used the 3 Plus preamp on the FUCK album, you know, 3 songs or something like that, or a couple songs. Who else used preamps that, you know, maybe I mean, Dean DeLeo used a Demeter along with the AC30, so he still had the organic amp component always mixed with the Demeter, being his sort of probably more modern high gain thing. But you know, so that's the thing that I don't know. There's just something about the integrated amp head with everything working with the transformers and everything. The other thing about rack gear with I'm not convinced that, you know, in a one rack space thing, it's the same thing output transformer wise as that big piece of iron that you can put in an amp that John just sort of never really ever wants to get away from. You know, for example, if you look at the output transformer in the PT15, it looks like Marshall's 50-watt transformers. You know, it's like, it's beefy. He won't compromise on transformers. So maybe when you had the best case scenarios, those VHT power amps or something that had the big transformers and they were heavy and like big boat anchors, but they sounded really good. But yeah, the preamp thing, it's like it never really got to the point where it was, there's always something about it where it was like, that's a great sort of reasonable facsimile of a cranked Marshall or something. But when we really think of you know, Eddie's Marshall sound or whatever, right? You know what I mean? So modern, I don't know. You'd have to, it'd be a great video. You know, maybe I should make one. I could do it, I guess. But you know, like comparing Soldano. Okay, like I've got some of the Synergy gear and I've been making some videos for their preamp modules and stuff. I think it's cool how I can integrate them with amps and change the sound and stuff like that. But I got one of those SLO 100s down there recently. That amp is, you know, it's a classic thing that does what it does. and it's kind of the bee's knees for that thing, right? That modern grindy, it's got everybody knows what they do. I mean, it's not modern, it was made in 87, but it's a thing. Does this module sound the same as with the preamp? Because I've tried it and I've gone back and forth. Actually, that was the most recent experiment I can think of with this. Like the SLO module, does it sound the same as that amp? Because I had them both around. Not exactly, It's close, and there's similarities, and they're good sounds. They're both good sounds, but is it the same? I don't think it's the same as having the amp with the, which is like everybody always said those amps with the original transformers and everything were the shit, right? I don't know. There's just something about, having everything integrated that is the ultimate. So I think preamps would have taken over if, you can get really close and it's great. And there's a lot of options with them and stuff, but I don't know. I'm repeating myself. Sorry. I'm going around in circles here, but 200 likes for Pete, says Metalhead Hippie. Thanks. Yes, please hit the thumbs up if you dig the video. I really appreciate it. Somebody's talking about the Metaltronics amp. I remember those. Been looking for one for years with the big gold faceplate, right? Lee Jackson. I think isn't he making amps again? I think you can get a new one. Lauren says run the SLO module into the SLO power section. The power amp makes such a difference because I did try with the Synergy. I've tried using into every amp you put it into has a different sound, whether it's my PT15 or their power amp. Generally speaking, I find that it sounds brighter running into most amps than it does running into its own power amp for whatever reason. So, you can compensate on the module by just changing but the overall tone sounds a little more like maybe there's a balance or something when it's run into their power amp. Whereas when you're running into different, amps have different presence circuits. The power amp of every amp is designed to work with the amp. So it's like, there's a certain, the resonance or depth and the presence and everything like that will be different. Whether or not that stuff is adjustable, generally presence is, but sometimes the resonance or depth is built into an amp. Chris says he forgot he was watching this live. I forget I'm live sometimes. Are we here? Is this a simulation? I think we're living in a simulation. There's somebody in SS is from India. What's up, man? He's in the bottom of the chat here. He says, for metal, do you boost the drive distortion in front of the amp, or do you keep the drive distortion at a decent level and boost the amp gain? It depends on the amp you're using. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. It depends, if you've got an amp that's like a JCM 800 and you're trying to boost it like Kerry King or something like that, I think the idea would be to use a boost into the front end that leans out the low end. That's all, once again, a Jose Marshall is as a tube with the low end leaned out going into the front end. It just sounds great. But boosting, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, if the amp has tons of gain, like let's say a diesel or something else, even an SLO, man. I mean, that amp is not the tightest sounding amp in the world. That's the thing about an SLO. If you use it for metal, I would say you're probably, depending on whether or not how much gain your metal. The other thing is like players sometimes use too much gain, and if you're a really good player, you can back down the gain and maybe crank up the amp and use more volume and then play really tight and accurate. And then you're going to get, a player like Hetfield or something like that. I mean, when I think about him, it's more like the active pickups, the high gain, a really good aggressive right hand that's extremely dialed in. And he's probably not a pedal guy, right? It's going to be the Mesa, the old days of the Mark, and he's also got, some Marshall stuff. I think like Ride the Lightning was his Marshall, I think. But anyways, there's no right or wrong way to do this stuff. It's however you get to. A lot of it is right hand technique, I find, and accurate right hand technique, and not sloppy with good muting and stuff. One player that I'll pick up a guitar and amp combo can make it sound tight, and then another guy will pick up the same guitar and it sounds loose. And it's in the way they play and pick and attack and mute and stuff, So it really depends on a lot of different things. But for metal, I always recommend, just practicing enough so where you can back the distortion down to just a little bit under where it feels totally comfortable, you know. And if your sound still isn't tight, then apply, you know, maybe a boost to the front end, but with, you know, like that's what a tube screamer was used for. But there's other ones now that, remember that Horizon thing they came out with called the Nano that was like basically a low cut in a pedal? That thing could sound pretty great going into a lot of gain. So into something like a Soldano that isn't the tightest amp in the world when you crank the overdrive channel up past, say, 5 on the gain, something like that Nano Attack thing, I think all it is just leans out the low end, you know. Blues Cat says Warren Haynes through his SLO. It was always a pleasure to hear. Yeah, totally. Always great sound, you know. Gain staging, says Bob. Yeah, that's right. That's all it is, you know. There's something about my friend Al, who was really, really smart, still is, and a big influence on me. I always remember him saying that there's a certain low end you can get out of a Marshall by running 4/412s, right? Like by running, you know, maybe 2 stacks with 4 cabinets, and you can turn the bass on the amp off. And he taught me that back in the 80s, where it's like, yeah, on something like a Marshall, like sometimes you get the bass out of the cabinets developing the resonance and stuff like that, and then you can turn the amp bass all the way off and it'll stay tight. And then just all the other ways to get, you know, like the more gain that you pile on, the kind of the less bass that you want to push through the preamp. So that's something to keep in mind for a really tight sound. On something like an Axe Effects, you can go in, you know, the actual amp, and there's a thing in there, the low cut, that allows you to filter the low end, and you can go up as high as, like, you know, 500 hertz or something, and it helps it stay tight. You're essentially rolling off bass and cutting bass all the way up to that point, and it'll keep it really attacky and tight. So, yeah, one of the greatest tones ever, Haynes and Soldano. Yeah, I mean, somebody like Warren, you know, if you dial it in, you play it loud, and you play like him, that fatness you want to keep, because for single notes, that's the balance, and that's where I say we started off talking a little bit about like original OD100 amps, John Suhr, and you know, the way that he designed them. He likes great big single notes without too much gain. I mean, he grew up, you know, ZZ Top and stuff was his thing. So when you think about big fat single note with a lot of girth on the note, you know, not too thin, without too much gain, it's always that balance of how much bass to gain. So, Pete, why don't metal guys love 10-inch speakers? Good, interesting question. That's it from Eric. Seems like the tighter bass response would be perfect. It's an interesting question, you know, what some of these amps might sound like into a closed back 410 that was designed really well, you know, with a good tight 10-inch speaker in it. You're right. You know, I don't know. Good question. Maybe just nobody ever thought of it because the cabinets look smaller and it's not as badass. I don't know. Yeah. I always get my tighter tones with an increased master volume and backed off distortion. It eliminates that flubby sound. Well, you're pushing less through the preamp when you back the gain down, you know, and the less that you push through the preamp, the less it builds up that flubby stuff. It's what a Fender, you know, when a Fender sounds really nice and full at low volume, but then as you turn it up, there's all that bass in the preamp, and it doesn't sound tight anymore, right? You know, the Marshalls, and then the gainy Marshalls, especially with the, like I say, like a Jose or something, it's got that low end, it's got a 0022 cap or whatever on the tube that just leans the shit out of the low end. So it's basically like a mid-high boost going into the front end of the amp, and it's got that aggressive. The other thing about a Jose that Dave taught me that's really interesting is that Marshalls, of course, would have a bright cap, many of them on the input 1, the main volume, and as you turn that down, the bright cap becomes more active, right? So the Jose with the tube in front of that, you can kind of back down that second gain stage, and the bright cap comes into play, and you're hitting it with that leaned out front end thing, and also mixing in the bright cap by turning the volume down a little bit. The gain drops a little, but the sound gets that teeth and aggressive thing. So it goes from being gainy and real full and maybe on the verge of flubby to roll down volume 1 a little. The gain just gets a little less, and then the teeth come in and it gets tight. And that's what's kind of cool about that sound. You get all those harmonics and stuff. It's pretty cool. Gain staging. That's right. Yeah, when you play subwoofers next to each other, you greatly increase the bass, says Michael. So stacking 412s is probably similar. Yeah, I remember Al seeing Steve Stevens at a local club in Edmonton, the Metro, and him going to see the show. It was Atomic Playboys gig when they were doing that. It's probably around '89 or something. And him saying how great his guitar sound was. Of course, Steve was running, tons of Marshalls, really loud back then, but using a lot of cabinets, maybe 4 or 6 412s, something like that, And he was saying how his sound was amazing and tight, and there's something about using all those cabinets that give you the bass that's clean, coming right out of the cab. Have you tried the new Marshall Studio Vintage 20 amp, says Renan? I haven't personally tried it. I've heard folks like Doug Aldrich playing through it. Is it worth the investment, or do you suggest something else in the price range for vintagey tones? I think they're a really cool idea, and I love the look and the idea. When you look inside, they're not like amazingly, the components and stuff like that. But that's probably a neat mod platform anyway, and kind of cool. I don't know. You're not far off at $1,200, which I think they are, from the price of a used 1987X. So you could get a 50 watt and have a little more amp for $100 or $200 more, I think, used. And then, truth be told, the Germino there, I got that for around 1,800, I think. And it's a amazing, turret board, point to point, like all straight with Marin transformers and the whole 9 yards. So for another, $600 or something, you've got a full blown proper. So is it worth it? It depends, Maybe you can find one used for $900 or $800. Then it might be fun, to get one. And maybe if I got one, the first thing I'd do is send it to Dave or something and have him mod it, and like either for, like do your thing to this, make this cool, like vintage as possible. And he'd probably change a cap or two or something and, dial it in. That'd be what I'd do, and just kind of have them go through it. I'm sure they're great sounding. I've seen Doug play through one, like I say, and it sounds really good, so yeah. More Guitar says putting some 5751 tubes in the preamp, replacing 12X7s, is also a great way to clear up some fizzy distortion, one of SRV's tricks. All you're really doing, in my opinion, you're getting some of the character of the tube, of course, but it's lower gain. So you're cleaning up. You sort of, I don't know how, I've often thought that, like with a 5751 or say a 12AT7, how different is it really than just dropping the volume a click, at a given setting? Because you're just dropping the gain a little bit. So, but maybe it is. Not saying it's not. I just always wondered that, because I always thought, well, it's just a lower gain tube. It's 80% of the gain of the 12AX7 or something. So, but maybe it's got a different. Everything affects everything. So you might be right that it's. I know he did that. SRV did that. 5751. Anything where you feel like it, you want to clean it up just a little bit and just a little less. Maybe it does lean out the lows or something just from the tube. I don't know. Good question. Yeah. Everything's a balance. Are you still 100% on the 9.5 gauge strings thing, or have you reconsidered it all going to 9s? I'm digging 9.5s. I haven't really thought about going to 9s. The last time I tried 9s overall, I thought they were a little thin sounding for me on the plain strings, and I just never. I have a couple guitars with 9s. Like my EVH style black Strat here with the tortoiseshell guard. That kind of, it's an E flat with 9s always. I just leave it like that. And because it's right for that sound, that's my gain EVH axe. So it depends on what I'm doing, but for, if you're playing cleaner at all and stuff, or Fender style amps, I think 9.5 might be as thin as I want to get. Maybe I actually was recently thinking about putting 10s on my Strat, because it sounded great in the video that I ended up doing, but there's a part of me that wonders if it sounds a little anemic sometimes for some things I'm trying to do. My old Strat. So, as a guitar to have around here for mainly recording and stuff, not really, nobody's playing out these days, but you know what I mean? Not really taking on tour and stuff. Maybe just, I would have 10s on that guitar, or maybe even 11s, I don't know. just on that one guitar for tone. But overall, I find 9.5. It's kind of like picks, man. It's like I use those Ultex 73s, you know, and it's not my favorite pick for everything, but it's a great all-rounder. So I find 9.5 is a good all-rounder for me. What's the question from Metalhead Hippie? Bob Baumeister says, please answer the question from Metalhead Hippie. Do they make half gauge strings? Can you get 10.5? Says George. Yeah, I believe they do make 10.5s. Yeah, Mike Jones says he's going to try maybe putting a 5751 in a pedal he's got that's designed to use 12A7. It might sound really cool. Yeah, you can try that. Definitely. Metalhead Hippie is asking, do boost pedals and screamers work well with solid state amps? Yeah, I mean, you can use it into a modeler or it depends on the amp, would be my question. No reason why you can't use it with a solid state amp and get a great result, or maybe not a great result, depending on what you're running it into. So, definitely. Hope that helps. Move down to the bottom of the chat here. Check out Ernie Ball. Yeah, Ernie Ball has the half gauges as well as the 9.5s are called Primo Slinkies. I don't know what they call the 10s. And the Diodario has them as well. They have half gauges. They were the first company that did half gauges, actually. If you're going to do a gig with a Music Man 110 RD, what pedals would you add and where and what order? I would probably use it as a clean platform and take my baby pedal board with, you know, with a Flint and a El Cap stand, and maybe find a, you know, maybe my Sweet Tea or a nice Marshall drive of some sort like that. And what order? I would have a compressor. My little pedal board is a good, you know, it's got a compressor, it's got a phase 90, it's got a Sir Coco boost on it, and then it's got a Marshall style drive generally that I rotate. Depends. Sometimes I've used the Bogner Blue on there. I've used the, you know, like I say, you could put the Revival on there or something like that. And then in front of that is always that Coco boost that I could kick it with. And then later down in the chain are the El Capistan and then the Flint Reverb. And I've also got a slot that rotates where I can put a mod pedal of some sort. So I would put like a Terraform or something like that there probably. And I could do a gig with a Music Man 110, I'm sure, with that little pedal board. Wyatt says he put a 12A U7 in his Ibanez Tube King and it totally changed it. Hopefully for the better. But yeah, like a 12AU or 12AT or 5751 on any pedal that comes with a 12AX7 you can do and mix up the sound. Yeah. Have you had any chance to check out the Buddha Superdrive series amps? They have Friedman front ends in them. Yeah, I know Dave had something to do with the design of those. Haven't very, yeah, you know, I've seen them around and stuff, but I haven't, to be honest. Those go way back, and I just never got a chance to play through them, really. Have you ever ate dinner or lunch as you were playing on stage, like in between songs? That's Braxall. I have to think about that. I probably have. I've probably had a bite of food or something on stage when I was like super hungry and didn't get a chance to eat. I just don't remember. I've done a lot of gigs. Used to do it at rehearsals all the time. You know, where like you get sushi's great for that. Just pop a roll while you're like, you know, mid chord. Oh, I got a whole rest. You know, other things are tough. Pizza, maybe, I don't know. That would be tough. Indian food, probably not like a great idea. Sushi's like made to eat at rehearsal. I put like the little, it's like rehearsal with Kiyoshi. I'd put like my guitar down on my lap, and then I have all my sushi like on the back of the guitar, just like in the boxes, you know. I always remember Seiki, Kiyoshi's MD, saying, "You like sushi maybe more than Japanese." Every day they'd laugh at me in rehearsal. The Japanese guys would crack up with me eating my sushi every day. Like, too much fish, buddy. You need to mix it up a bit. Let's see. Some folks arriving late, but great to have you here. 350 folks online. Rebel Yell by Steve Stevens. What gear? I'm sure he would say it was a Marshall Super Lead, although I don't know which one. But he's got a couple, he's got a 71. He had a couple, and I don't. I'm a little foggy on it. But he still got it. I know that the amp that he used to record it might have been a Charvel that he used to record a lot of that music around that time. I think, you know. Rick Wakeman got kicked out of Yes for eating a curry while doing a really demanding solo. Is that true? Prince Westerberg. God, they don't have a very good sense of humor, do they? Eating a curry. That's awesome. Have you written a sushi song yet? No, I haven't. That's Lauren. I need to do that. GHS or D'Addario? I use Ernie Ball. I'm a longtime Ernie Ball endorser. I like D'Addario strings, though. I think they're quite good, too. But I'm a longtime Ernie Ball guy. Do I own any HSH, Sir, or other guitars? I don't think I do have one single hum guitar. It's all two humbuckers or hum single in my world. So, have you ever met the DeLeo brothers? I have, and I know Rob actually fairly well. Rob's somebody I've known since the early 90s because he used to work at Mesa Boogie Sunset, Mesa Boogie Hollywood. So, true story, I used to go in there all the time. Like when I was a kid, I lived on Fuller in Hollywood, which is right by Guitar Center and whatever, and off the Sunset Strip there. And of course, the Mesa Boogie store was right there. I used to go in there and buy strings and cables and whatever I needed. And Rob worked in there. And one day, Rob was gone and just didn't work in there anymore. Sean Tubbs worked there too, around that time, I think. One day, Rob wasn't there anymore. I just didn't see him anymore. And I remember he's really cool. He always used to say, like, "Come see my band, man." He had this band. He handed me a card once from Mighty Joe Young, and he's like, "This is my band," and I'm like, "I'd love to see you guys play." He's a super nice guy, just really nice, always cool. And then one day he wasn't around anymore. And around 93 or 92, 93 or whatever, I flipped through a magazine and I got to the center page and it was a 2-page spread with a full band shot and it was Stone Temple Pilots. And there's Rob. And I was like, oh, that's why he doesn't work in the music store anymore because he's a bass player in Stone Temple Pilots. And of course, Mighty Joe Young became STP. And I was really happy to see that he'd made it and was doing, that Core album, I think it was called, was out, and they were huge. And I thought, what a great guy. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And then anytime I've seen him since then, he always remembers me and he's always really, really nice. He's a really nice person and a very, very talented player. Now, Dean, I've only met a couple times, but the last time was right here, actually, close to where my studio is. They were at an unrelated, another place. But I was outside and I saw them out in the parking lot and I went over and I was like, hey, and I saw Rob and Rob introduced me to Dean because we hadn't met and we talked for a little while. There's a couple other people there. I seem to remember Chad Smith. Maybe they were doing something together, but he was there too. And we were looking at, he had a beautiful Corvette, a 67 split window black Corvette. And I was like, God, that is a beautiful, it was the one year that they did the split window Corvette. And I was like, what a gorgeous car. So we started talking about his car. But I remember talking to Dean for quite a while that day. Just kind of back and forth or whatever. And it was cool. But so that's the only time I really met Dean. He was really nice. And Rob always is super nice. Then I saw Rob not long ago. I live in Pasadena. You might see me around there sometimes. And I saw him with his son one day walking down the street. And I was like, he was like, hey man, what's going on? I was like, he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I like it out here. And that was before I'd actually moved there, I think. Just Old Town Pasadena. And he's like, I like it here too, man. He's like, I believe he lives down in the South Bay area of LA. But he said, I come out here because I'm from the East Coast originally, and this has that feel like, and it's true, Pasadena does have that kind of like a small city on the East Coast sort of vibe a little bit. It's a nice vibe. So, and he just decided to come out and hang for the day in Old Town or whatever with his kids. So I saw him there, and he's always super kind. What a great player too. Amazing bass player. He wrote a lot of that material, I think. What else do we got here? Texts coming in. Folks texting me. What time is it? 1:27. I guess I gotta go pretty soon, eh? It's like got a little Canadian on you there for a second. Time to go, eh? Just a few more questions here. I'll hang for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to split. Speaking of split window, 63 is the year they made the split window vet. Really? I thought it was a 60. Is it? I thought it was 67, the particular one that he had. I'm not an expert in Corvettes I'm not an expert in any car, but I know a little more about Mustangs because my dad was a Ford guy. 63. Okay. 63, a bunch of you guys are saying 63 split window. Okay, I stand corrected. It's because a bunch of you said that in a row, so I must be wrong. I thought it was 67, but whatever. What the hell do I know? That's my brain. Ed Pittman says he's thinking of order Sir Alt T, and he has Thornbuckers and other Sirs. Wondering if I recommend any single coils for a custom Alt T with an ebony board and roasted swamp body. Like, you gonna go single hum? I would just put a V60 LP in the middle, or the V63. Probably, that'll balance the best with the humbuckers. That guitar will sound great though. I have an Alt-teen. It's a terrific guitar. And Britt actually uses it all the time it's living in her studio now, but every time I play it, I always think, man, this guitar sounds really good. Really, really good sounding. Split window is definitely 63 only. I stand corrected. Now I'll always remember. I always learn something every week from you guys, and that was my takeaway this week. Thank you. Pete spilled the beans, who is the special guest in the next few weeks. I can't do that. That'll ruin it. But I'll tell you guys soon, but just not yet. But he's a fantastic guitar player and old school rock and roll star. So it's going to be good. Let's see here. What else we got? Anything else? Any thoughts on Dr. Z? I've played a few. They were cool. Never bought one, but I played. You know who has a lot of Dr. Z amps is what's the store? True Tone in Santa Monica. They'd always have a lot of Dr. Z. So when I was there trying pedals and things, I'd plug into them. And they had some cool ones. The Route 66, didn't they have an amp called that or something? Cool sounding, maybe KT66. Maybe that's why they called it that. Don't know much about them, to be honest, obviously. The Maz, I think they were more like AC30 kind of based, that one. Have I ever used an iPad for recording? No, not really. I haven't. I have an iPad, but I've used it for only very limited. I watch Netflix on it, and I use it as my aux controller. I bought it reluctantly, and actually I quite like it. But I bought it because I like one more thing that Apple has that I really don't want to invest in, but I guess I got to get one, and I got one, and I have it, and I use it for my aux, and that'll always be my iPad. I'm sure I'll never get another one unless they cripple it, which they probably will. Get Laurie for a guest someday. I would like to do that. Does your next guest name start with Richie and last name start with Kotzen? I haven't talked to him. I think, did I contact? I think I sent him an IG message and I didn't hear back, but that's not the best way to get in touch with people. I do have his phone number, so I should text him and see if he's interested. Yeah. 67 had the Stinger hood and less of the fake vents that of previous Stingray's cleanest version. You can get over the 427. Interesting. Must have been a 63 because I remember the split window thing clearly. How is the scene right now in the U.S. for touring musicians? It's non-existent. Nobody's really touring other than if they're being renegades and doing the kind of like the Sturgis thing or something like that, which has now been linked to coronavirus outbreaks all over the country. So the bands, it's pretty frowned upon to go out and play right now. I think, it's like, hey, the rest of us are chilling and not, so it's not happening right now, man. There's just no gigs. I saw recently in certain places like England and stuff, they're doing those socially distanced gigs where they've got penned in areas, where you can put like maybe a maximum of 6 or 8 people or something in one area or something. I still don't feel good about it. I went out last night to have some dinner and went to a couple places, and as it is on Saturday night, because it's all outdoor dining now, it all looked too crowded to me, man. It's just too many people, and you just think to yourself like, I made it this far. I don't want to get sick. I know one guy that got the virus, and he told me about it yesterday. He's like, he did okay. But he was like, man, it's scary because I started to feel like I had the flu. And then, and it's like, man, how bad is this going to get? And you're like, damn it. And he said he barely felt it one day at night. And then the next day he felt like Oh yeah, I got it's like a flu, And then he only had a couple bad days, he said, and then it started getting better. But he's not, he's over 50 and you just don't know. I read Ice-T, was talking about his father-in-law got it and he was in the hospital. I believe he was on a ventilator. If not, he was at least on oxygen. Now he's home on oxygen kind of for the foreseeable future because he got really buggered up from it. And Ice, who probably, well, like truth be told, sure, he knows a lot of people because he's like a famous actor as well as, in the music business and stuff. But he claims to know 10 people that have died. That scares the shit out of me. He's an older guy. He's 60 something now, but he's like, it's no joke, man. And his own father-in-law, he was putting up pictures of him while he was in the hospital and stuff. It's bad, Who wants to live a compromised life for the next, as an older guy, there's his father-in-law now. He's on an oxygen tank with a mask on for who knows how long. He can't breathe right. It's no joke, man. So going out is a scary thing for food. I went home and we bought takeout, and then I went home and ate at my own table. Peter Evans, I do like to go out sometimes though, and there's places in LA I feel like are pretty safe during the week where you get the hell away from everybody and have your own table that's 20 feet away from everybody, and I do that, and that I feel okay about, supporting local businesses and stuff, just as long as I'm not around anyone. I'm kind of a loner anyway. Peter Evans is there in the super duper top chat thing. Thanks, man. He says, great show from one Canadian to another. Enjoy a cold drink. You are too kind, my friend. Thank you. Wish I could visit Canada. Actually, God, I would love a trip to to be able to go to Vancouver or something right now. It'd be so awesome. I guess I could. They'll let me in, but I probably have to quarantine for 14 days or something. So that's not very conducive to getting any work done. Or, anyways, and then coming back here actually, I heard it's not hard to get in the States as an American. Coming back in, there's very little. Whatever. Rumors of Fleetwood Mac played an outdoor gig last week, says Steven. Yes, I know that actually, that they did do that. They were the band I was thinking of when I saw the photos of the kind of the. So England evidently is doing quite well right now without a lot of rise in cases. I was looking at a map this morning, and it's pretty interesting. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see here. Prince Westerberg, I got to disagree with you, man. He says, I've heard of people who've died of heart attacks and kidney disease where the death certificate said COVID, and you're saying it's all rubbish. I'm going to go with a hard no on that one. One thing, this isn't a respiratory disease. They're finding out I don't know if you call it vascular, but it's got a lot to do with blood vessels and a lot to do with inflammation of different organ systems. So that's the thing. Yes, it makes lungs and pulmonary stuff and inflamed and stuff, but it's also blood. So heart attack, stroke, tons of strokes related to it, right? That, right? Tons of strokes, right? See, and the stroke stuff is some of the scariest stuff because they're seeing in people in their 20s and 30s and stuff like that, where a blood clot forms in the brain and they're actually seeing it on imaging. They go in, they remove it, and then they see another one forming in real time. If you've read of this stuff, you're going to know that that's why the death certificates, for things like heart attacks and strokes and these, it's all connected, man. But it's like it's an inflammatory thing and a blood clot thing. True story. Anyways, let's talk guitar again for a second before I get out of here and not go away on that. But Ronnie Ward says, have you ever used an Aphex oral exciter in your guitar rig? Aphex, not so much, but like BBE, I tried one of the sonic maximizers, which kind of does a thing with, I think, delaying low end and lining low end and high end and stuff, and just makes everything more clear. Kind of fun, like in an effects loop of an amp. That was an 80s thing where some guys were trying the BBE in the loop. I remember trying that, and I think an oral exciter was a kind of a similar thing. Your recollection of playing with Mandy Moore, Andrew Stevenson says, good times. She was 19 when I played with her. Really fun and funny. And I did an album, kind of not even touring cycle, but she was bringing out an album of cover songs, and she did it with my friend John Fields. And I was coming right out of playing with the band 40 Foot Echo, who was a really fun project and stuff. And I had a great time doing that. We made a cool record, but I was making like no money, truth be told. And I was just tired of being broke and, funny band on label, big record deal and all that. But you're making, $500 a week or something, right? It was not sustainable. So my friend John Fields called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go to the Philippines with Mandy Moore? I made this record. She's a big star over there. And we've got 2 shows. One of them's a huge festival for like 50,000 people, and another one's in an arena. And then we're going to do some TV. We'll be in Manila for a week, and the pay is this much, first class flight. I'm in. Let's go." So that's how I got into the project. And it was all friends. John's a great, he's a, great producer. It's done all kinds of stuff, but he was working on it. He's always a good time and he's an amazing musician, and he likes to have a good time and not work too hard. He's kind of a first take, second take, let's get done, and let's go out and get a bite to eat and have a margarita kind of guy, just a lot of fun, like a super cool dude, Minneapolis guy. And so he always surrounds himself with good people that are talented and capable. And we went to the Philippines. We had the best friggin' time. Like for that week, I remember like every night going in the bar in the hotel. We were staying in a Shangri-La, which is generally super fancy hotels all over, definitely on the Pacific Rim kind of. And they had a bar that had a different cover band every night. We would go in the cover band and just in the bar and just rock out. Every night they'd get us up to play. And she was like a big star there, like on the level of at the time, like Britney Spears or something. Mandy was like that big, but in the Philippines. So for her to go into the bar, everybody would go nuts and stuff. And she got up and jammed and stuff and would sing and we'd do stuff. I remember playing like with Paul Trudeau, the keyboard player, and our drummer. I remember doing like Benny and the Jets one night where I played bass, and it was like we were killing it. And I don't know. I just remember jamming on all kinds of stuff and having a really good time. And then there's some video of it we did a song called Moon Shadow by Van Morrison. You can see video of that on YouTube. Look up Mandy Moore Moon Shadow television or something, and it'll pop up and you'll see me playing with her. But we did a little bit of that in the US, like some television stuff, and that was it. So that was my time, but it was really fun. So it was like a loose, easy way to get back into the sideman game, coming off of kind of a letdown with the 40 Foot Echo time, because the band got to a certain level and then we couldn't break past that. The label didn't want to keep giving the band tour support, and they just sort of pulled the plug. And Hollywood Records, big record label, like if you don't get we with 40 Foot Echo, we made a great kind of modern rock record of the time, I feel like. And we had some great heavier kind of singles and stuff that sounded like singles to me. But they went to Heritage Radio, which is like KLOS in LA. They play like ZZ Top and AC/DC and stuff. Why did they go to that format? I don't know. And they never gave us an active rock or modern rock like KROQ in LA, or a active rock. Some of the LA doesn't even really have or didn't have an active rock station, but more in the heartland of the country, active rock was like, and we had an ad date for our single at radio there, and then they pulled the ad date, and they decided what they would do is put out a song called Brand New Day that was a single of ours that was in the Freaky Friday soundtrack. And it was a pop, a rock pop ballad, really. And they were going to go to top 40 with that instead. So they pulled our active rock single. These are the kinds of shit that happens in a band where you don't have any control. Oh, I'm in a band now. I'm a band member. Yeah, you have no control over anything. No say over. So it's like somebody decides, okay, we're going to go to, pop radio essentially with this single. And it's like, we're a friggin' rock band, man. Like there was one ballad on the record. They got a movie tie-up for it, and it was the end title credit song in that movie with, Lindsay Lohan or whatever. And all of a sudden, okay, we're pulling the active rock and we're going to top 40. Put it all in. It's kind of like betting all your chips on that, and nothing happened. They added it, and it, probably debuted at number 65 or something, and then fell off the chart after that. And then they pulled the tour support on the band after that. Now, at this time, 40 Foot Echo had a top 10 rock single in Canada, which was a song called Save Me. And it in Canada with Universal, they loved us up there. That was our label in Canada. Popularity was growing, was getting radio play all the time, was doing good and stuff, but did not matter because we were signed in the States to Hollywood Records. That was the parent record label, and it was like, so Canada was like we're going places, we're doing things, but we couldn't work it because we had no money for tour support, basically. So that happened, and that was coming right off of the last tour I did with them. I got the call about the Mandy Moore thing, and the band was asking me to go do another tour for no money, like free, basically. And we're, come on, guys, we're just gonna have to suck it up and tour, you know, and go out and do it, you know, and do one more, you know, we got to get in the. And I was like, I was already like 32 years old or something, you know, and I was like guys, I'm not down with the get in the van and everybody all for one for all thing anymore. I'm not like 22 years old, and that's what happened. And I went with the sideman gig instead, and ended up making a bunch of money and having fun with my friends and stuff. And of course the band, they put out another record after that and stuff, and they were a great band. And Murray, the singer and songwriter, is a really talented guy. But it, you know, it's hard, man. Like doing bands, it's such a crapshoot, especially back then, because that was still the days of the big record business and all the money, you know, and they're putting in the, you know, they make all these decisions, call all the shots and stuff. And then she married Ryan Adams, and that ended less than well. That's true. After that was when she met Ryan. She was dating Zach. What's his name? Is it Zach Efron or something? I don't want to. I can't remember the guy. She was dating the guy that did. Oh God, I'm never gonna remember now. He was an actor anyway, pre Ryan Adams. And they were a thing, and then they broke up, and then I think she met Ryan not long after that. And you're right, that didn't end well. Yeah. Great girl though. Mandy's sweet. She's really nice, fun. Like she was a lot of fun. Super cool. Do you like the Amp Tweaker Pro pedals? I do. That's Eric. The only one I tried was the real Marshally one. It's red. Can't remember the name of it, but Ichiro used to use that for a while on his pedal board, and I always thought it sounded really good. He's the other guitar player in Toshi Negabuchi's band in Japan that I worked with, and that was his main kind of Marshally drive pedal for a while when he was playing through clean amps and using pedals for distortion. It sounded good. There are videos of you playing that gig with a Les Paul. Yeah, I have that guitar actually. It's in here somewhere. It's like my old red Les Paul, right? Andrew Stevenson says. Anyways, yeah, no control, says John. You are 100% correct, and you also have to get your fellow bandmates to agree on label offers. Yeah, it was just kind of my experience being in bands was that you have less control than you do as a sideman, where you're at least like an independent contractor and can pick gig to gig and tour to tour what you're doing, you know. In a band, it's like this all for one for all. We're all making no money. Let's go. Let's get in the van. And then generally speaking, the other aspect of that is like, okay, we all got to put, you know, let's do this. We're going to make it together. Then the money maybe starts coming in. And then the delineation really shows of who actually makes the money in the band. So you're all in it until like, you know, like maybe you're splitting the merch and live money and all that equally or whatever, but somebody's getting all the publishing, the writing, or, you know, it's pretty rare that everybody's that even split. If there is, then it's different. You know, no two bands are the same, but many times there's that like, yeah, we're all in this together. And then all of a sudden the singer or the guitar player or whoever it is in the band that's the main writer, all of a sudden they're making that bank. And then like the other guys are like, I'm still living in a 1-bedroom apartment or sleeping on my girlfriend's floor or whatever. Why are you guys have a lot of money? I don't have a lot of money. That stuff all comes into play. And, you know, well, what do you want to complain about? There's a bunch of different drummers that'd take your job if you don't want to do it. You know, that's bands, you know, young, not thinking it through. But anyway, what's happening with live music around you? Any bands still able to play out? For a minute when bars were open, I heard some bands playing and I'd be like, whoa, there's live music again. That's crazy. But no, nothing right now. There's no music, man. Nothing's happening that I've seen. I mean, there might be like a restaurant occasionally. Zach Braff from Scrubs. That might be the guy. I can't remember. His name was Zach and he was a big movie star and I didn't know. He had done a big movie that he wrote himself. I remember that and starred in, and it made him famous because he was talented. And that was her boyfriend at the time. I only met him like once, but I'm so done with TV and movie stars, to be honest. I don't know a lot of their names and stuff. Yeah. Let's see. Must be hard, Pete, loyalty to the old band. Yeah, somebody saying Zach Braff. Loyalty to bands. It's like when you're young, I always recommend people do bands when they're young. you know, when they can, when they're young and they have the, you know, disposable income, or not disposable. When you what's my point is, your bills are low. You can live for, you know, couch surf for, you know, do things for no money. And you should do bands then, because once you get into your 30s and getting a little older, it starts to be harder to do those things, to justify making no money and getting in the van. And it's kind of a dangerous lifestyle. It's like you're touring in a van with a trailer and, generally speaking, kind of a bunch of knuckleheads. And, you know, there's, you know, fatigue and, you know, it's for young people, you know. And as you get older, it gets more difficult. So it's good to learn as much as you can and be wise about it and do it when you're young. And then as you get older, it's like you're probably going to want more out of life than that lifestyle, because it can be tough, you know. You know, I just, those 15 passenger vans, they give me the EBGBs, you know, to be honest. I see them and I get the, almost like break out in hives, because I've done a lot of, you know, like I never did that again. It's kind of like planes. I mean, I'm not a big fan of flying either. After, you know, all the flying I've done and stuff, it's just, you know, I'm a snob when it comes to that stuff now, just because you do enough and then you're like, it's not fun anymore, you know, after a while. I don't miss it right now, to be honest. I mean, a lot of people are like, I'd love to fly. You know, I see these things about people like going to do flying, you know, like in Japan, they've got fake airplanes because people miss traveling. So they're going to do that during these times when nobody's going anywhere. And I'm like, I do not get that. I don't get the, you know, if I never did it again, you know. I like when I get all the perks, you know, first class and the airline lounge, and, you know, I get on then it's okay. Now it's like, this is a nice experience. I can get on and, you know, watch a movie and all that. And if it ain't that, anything else other than that just feels like a real chore to me. You know? I'd rather just be home, you know. I love traveling. I love the gigs, you know, and I love being in a foreign place, but the airport experience and everything, and the nightmares you see on planes these days with people getting mad about the masks or whatever, like freaking out on the planes and getting kicked off and all the, God, man, it just seems like, just do not put me anywhere near any of that. Like, I don't want any of that energy in my life, you know. Been searching for baked potatoes here. Richie Kotzen played there recently since the 50-song album release. Hasn't been much live stuff posted for a while now. Yeah, I don't think so. Landau just did a live stream from the baked potato this past Thursday, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was working and doing stuff, but, you know, Hypersonic Monkey Brain says, I've never liked flying. I just tolerate it. Yeah, it's just, you know, I love going places. I mean, I do, you know, to get on a plane and go to Japan right now. God, I wish I could do that. You know, if I'm going someplace I know I want to go, but let's say I got to go do a gig somewhere where it's like maybe less than exciting or something, you know. I love the idea of doing the gig, and but the whole experience is just, for me, I don't know. After doing so much travel, and then, to be honest, like YouTube and doing videos and stuff like that, like the amount of time you spend to go, let's say, do a one-off gig as a sideman, and the amount of money you make. Because let's face it, we're all, you know, I'm older. It's like, I got to make my bills and stuff like that. You spend 3 days, no matter what, getting to a gig and coming back. So if I'm flying to the East Coast or flying to Texas or flying wherever I'm flying, you're going to fly out there on the plane. You're going to spend all day doing that. You know, vans and planes and that whole experience, a hotel, getting in there. And then the next day you're going to do the gig and you're going to do it. And then the next day you're going to fly home. By the time you're home, you probably feel wasted. Maybe that day isn't so productive. It's 3 days out of your week, you know? And I used to do that stuff for years, for like 15 years. I did that, you know, and I spend my life doing it, you know, and maybe it's just the age I'm getting to, but it's like, it feels like a lot of time to spend to make, you know, a little bit of dough so you can make your bills. And once you've been everywhere and kind of traveled, yeah, it's fun. I have fun, you know, and I go there and, you know, and all that. But God, it's a lot of your life. That 3 days feels like, you know, how time gets more valuable the older and older you get. And it's like, you know, if you're going to Paris or something, it's one thing. I don't know, maybe I'm a snob, you know, but if you're going to, like, if you know you're just going to be sitting on the side of a freeway, probably in a Holiday Inn Express or something, you know, and you're going to go eat at Chili's, and then you're going to do the gig the next day, and it's going to be fun and all that. And then you're going to get on the plane and go back home. To be honest, I just kind of rather be here, like working and doing things, you know. That's really the way I feel about it. Is that wrong? I don't know. Ian says he detests flying. I don't know. People here in Seattle were pissed about Cornell's statue getting defaced. Did you see that in the news? I did. Vicky posted about it, his wife, and it's too bad. It's really shitty, but I'm sure they'll just fix it. You know, they'll repair it, and it'll be back to normal. The whole idea of statues, to be honest, to me, it's a little like, I'm not really into the, I don't know, monuments and things like that. I don't know. I mean, I love that he's got one, I guess, you know, but I don't know that I would go there. I guess I like going to see, you know, Phil Lynott's in you know, right in the middle of Dublin there, where it's, you know, that's cool to me. You just come across it, you know, or the Bon Scott one, that's pretty neat in Australia. I guess I kind of like him. I don't know, but maybe it's weird if it's somebody you know, or something. I don't know. So maybe it's just not my bag, I guess. I don't know. Landau, somebody saying only audio streams. Yeah, it was so it wasn't a video? I think it was video, wasn't it? Or no, was it not video? It's just an audio stream. I wasn't sure. Yeah. What else we got here? I'm gonna go pretty soon, guys. I've been on for 2.5 hours, I think. So it's probably split. If you can only have one reactive load, would you get the aux or the SIR? The answer for that depends what you want to do. It is about if you need the effects, you know, and some of the other features that the aux has, the reverb, the delay, the EQ. If you like those things, you know, that it offers, then you're going to want to go that way. If you want to spend less money and you want a truly really great reactive load with just simple IR capability, then you want to go with the SIR. So it's you got to ask yourself what your needs are, because for what's right for me isn't what's right for you, you know, I would say. Have you played an exotic XSC2 and compared it to SIR's version? I have not. That's M asking that. I haven't actually ever played an exotic guitar. I like their pedals though. I do. Yeah. What else? Anybody else? Okay, I think I'm going to split you guys. Any last questions? Did I miss anybody's super chat? I hope not. I hope I didn't. I've left the please subscribe and hit the bell thing up for the whole thing, I guess, but that's okay. If anybody got in here, hopefully they like what they saw. If they didn't, they won't subscribe, right? All right, you guys. I'll see you next week, and yeah, I'll try and line up some more guests and stuff like that. I know it's been a minute since I've had a guest. Videos coming this week. If nobody saw, if you got in here late, this crazy, amazing moving fader situation. Well, I'm beyond the presets with the moving faders. I wanted to show you. Oh, there it did. It went. Crazy drive pedal from Chase Bliss and Benson amps. Really, really cool. So the video for this is coming this week, as well as a bunch of other stuff that I've got here on deck to do. Some cool stuff coming up. Making presets for some stuff I can't talk about yet that is going to be coming out, and you'll have my presets if you use their stuff, and all kinds of other things. All right, everybody, have a terrific week and stay safe out there and stay cool, because it's hot one, at least here in California.